Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
You are listening to the Flagship Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
I'm on fire, Rich! You were on fire before, and I'm on fire now!
And Rich Craich.
Wonderful Christmas Time?
Yes, it was on earlier today when I was driving home from work.
It's the worst Christmas song that's ever been recorded.
It might be the worst song ever recorded. Rhythmically, it's terrible. The lyrics are awful. It's just everything about that song. Legitimately the dirt. I mean, it might be the worst song ever created. And we are live. This is the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. Joe, what's happening? How are you?
Live, you say?
Yeah, live as live can be. Had a little bit of a hiccup there with the streamer, but we're back. We're live. We're on. What's up?
We do these live? I wasn't aware. This is live?
Yeah, live as live can be.
They can hear us right now, huh?
They can hear us right now all across the universe, all across the world, everywhere.
I could say anything, and everyone will hear it.
Everyone, yes.
Wow.
The millions
That's a lot of power
and millions of people that are listening right now live. So we go head to head.
That's a lot of power you're giving me.
That was the initial. If you remember when we initially said we were going live with the Flagship, we always talked a big game about our we had to edit this, we had to edit that, we have to edit this. Sometimes we always would say, oh yeah, we did this and we had to edit that part or whatever. And then when we decided that we were going to start going live with these flagships, one of the big hooks was, you're going to get the live unedited, copy of the flagship.
Who knows what you'll hear?
Right. We won't be able to edit it off. And I think we've edited a total of maybe 2 or 3 things in, the 4 years that we've been live. But
maybe
but today could be the day.
Maybe 6 minutes in 4 years have been edited off.
Otherwise, yeah, we're pretty. I mean, to be fair, we used to be a little bit more blunt, I would say. I don't know if it's I don't know if necessarily going live has changed us, or just life has changed us, or the way that we approach the show has changed. There were several times where we'd finish a Flagship back in 2014 or whatever, and I go, all right, see you later, Joe, and then 8 minutes later, I get a text, and you're like, I don't know, maybe take that part out. I kind of buried that guy pretty bad, and I don't you know what, take that part out, or I don't know if that one's going to land as well. Yeah, I don't think people are going to like that one, so why don't you take that part out? So it used to be a little more prevalent. I will admit.
The wokes aren't going to like that one, Rich. Make sure you get that out of there. I think I don't know. That's a good theory. I don't know if it's true, though, that we've scaled back or changed. It might just be that because we know it's live and we know it's already out there, what's the point of cutting something? Could that be in the back of our minds?
That's possible. Yeah, it's possible that some of the things we cut back in the day weren't really that bad, but we were overthinking it, and we had the ability to cut it. So we were like, you know what, just cut it. Whereas now we're like, fuck it, just let it roll.
Just let it ride because it's already out there. If it's something that horrible that's going to cause a problem, it's too late, right? So it's maybe that's in the back of our minds. And you're right, because we had the ability to get rid of things, it's maybe that caused us to overthink certain things.
Sure, and I think also we don't care if people like us anymore because everybody already hates us.
That's true too.
We used to try to be liked, and that didn't work very well. So now we're doing what we do now, which is fuck it.
Yeah. We've run off almost all of the people. There's still a few hanging on who can't stand us. There's some hate listeners though, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It's I think that probably is. I was more of a loose cannon in those days.
Indeed, a little Brian Pillman over there, for sure. Yeah,
I would say this show's been around almost 15 years. So that's a lot of years, and that's a lot of. People change, people learn how to broadcast differently, people, so the show, do you think the show sounds drastically different than it did when it started. I don't
really
think
doesn't.
it does.
It really doesn't. Anytime I
think
go back and listen to an old clip or whatever, it really doesn't. I think we're maybe a little bit more confident with our voices now than we were in the very early days. We were trying to kind of figure this thing out. I think we were more prone to maybe not jump on each other's points right away. Like it would be, because now we kind of get it. Like we rarely interrupt each other. We kind of know when one person's done with the next point and move on to the next point. So I think that is a little bit more. But like in terms of like the way that we talk and the content of it and whatnot, it's pretty much the same show.
Yeah. I don't think the show in the big picture, I don't think has changed that much. There might be some smaller, more like you're saying, just believe it or not, this is the tighter, more professional version of this show.
Right.
That we do now. Maybe some small things, maybe in terms of the things that we talk about, that's always shifting and evolving. I was just talking about this the other day. There was a time, maybe a decade ago, maybe a little longer, that like Chikara was in the regular rotation.
Oh, yeah.
Almost a weekly topic.
Couldn't skip it.
What's
Could
going
not
on in
skip
Chikara.
it. No.
Dragon Gate was a weekly topic at one point on this show. And hand raised, that's my fault that it isn't now. I mean, you would still probably talk about Dragon Gate, maybe not every single week, but Corrigan's big shows and that. But the problem is I struggle to get into Dragon Gate. So it's like we can't do a topic where one person's totally disengaged. It's going to be awful audio. And, so that one's totally on me because I just struggle so hard getting into Dragon Gate. But those are two examples of promotions that were really in the rotation, regular rotation, whatever Gabe happened to be doing, which, during the time of our show would have been Evolve and Dragon Gate USA. Those promotions were always in the rotation. At times, Ring of Honor was more in the rotation, certainly more than it is today. TNA and Impact would drift in and out. We're doing probably less TNA and Impact than maybe ever. Like right now.
Oh yeah.
Right?
This is probably the lowest. We used to we used to cover pretty extensively, I'd say, even in the the doldrum days, because a lot of it was like, okay, are they going to survive past this point? Like that was a big thing. Like I know a lot of people now that TNA is a much more stable company than maybe it's been in quite some time, but there used to be very much touch and go. We came onto the show and you declared it that like they're going to go to the UK. I forget, they were going to do a tour of the UK and I forget what year it was going to be, and they were going to do a beer bash and that was going to be it, because that was it. They didn't have money to keep going. It was like, we have enough money to do this taping and this show, and after that we have no more money, so we might not come back. And then just by hook or by crook, somehow, some way, they would come back. Somebody would front them enough money to get through that next, bit of tapings or that next bit. And so that was kind of the lead topic with TNA for a while, was, can they survive? And then, they tried out a lot of crazy things. The Bound for Glory in Japan. I mean, that was that's a segment that I'll always remember too. Taz loving him some Andy Wu, Wrestle One, using Wrestle One in Japan as like the linchpin of a Bound for Glory is certainly a wild,
crazy days.
Right. Like, so yeah, we definitely covered a lot more TNA Impact in the earlier days of the show than we do these days.
I think DDT is one that's kind of fallen off. Big Japan
too. Yeah.
That one, we used to do, and during the pandemic, that changed the matrix in terms of what we were doing, just because there were so many Big Japan shows and 2AW shows that were happening, that we went heavily there, because it was those two promotions and really Game Changer, right? That just kept running shows. So we had to talk about something. And then, different stuff gets cycled in. Like for a while there, this was an NWA podcast, but with the move to CW, that kind of dropped out. Now we do every MLW show, and we're going to do MLW later today. So it's like promotions drift in and out of our interest, I guess, and end up getting real estate. But I do think, for the core of the show itself, I agree with you. I really don't think it's changed that much. It's pretty much the same show. So, same length, same format. It's pretty crazy that, almost a decade and a half. It's a pretty consistent format for what we do.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It's not broke. It's certainly not broke. It's not broke at all.
Just keeps growing. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I guess it works. There's still not a lot of other shows that attempt to do what we do. Some have come and gone, and there are some out there. But it's there's not a lot trying to butt in on our territory, so to speak. Not that anyone would be able to do it as well. I don't think they would be able to do it as well. But there's not even that many that try. I mean, it's hard to try to keep up with fucking everything and then have something to say about it. And I think sometimes people figure that out the hard way, I think. It could, but anyway, in typical Flagship fashion, we should probably open up with the Baseball Hall of Fame, right?
Of course. I was going to say, that's exactly what my segue was going to be well, since we haven't changed our format in a decade and a half, why don't we take this week that's loaded with wrestling, just an ungodly amount of wrestling all across the world, and shove that all over to the side so we can talk about Dick Allen. And let's do it. Let's talk about Dick Allen, right? Let's do it.
Well, I mean, it's funny because the Veterans Committee, which there is no Veterans Committee for the Observer Hall of Fame, which some people have pitched and I am against. I don't like the idea of a Veterans Committee or some sort of, separate section of experts to kind of force in candidates in the Observer Hall of Fame. I've heard people float that, and I'm not a fan of it. But the Baseball Hall of Fame does have a Veterans Committee. It's funny because they put in two guys who we have kind of stumped for over the years and said that they should be Hall of Famers, with Dick Allen and Dave Parker. So, I saw that the other day. I was like, those are the two Flagship guys that we've been saying should probably be Hall of Famers. Dick Allen, who a sabermetric, advanced analytics dream hitter, who just came 40, 50 years too early. When you look at his numbers, big on base percentage, a 600 slugging guy at times, just a great pure hitter in ways that may not have been quite as appreciated during the time that he played.
And also, the big thing with him too is when he played was really during the era of the pitchers. That era, that 60s
era. It was one
really,
of the dead ball eras.
Yeah, it's really called like the second dead ball era. I mean, obviously you have your very famous first dead ball era, and then you have the second one in the 60s where, it was dominated by big time pitchers and big time strikeouts and guys that weren't really doing a whole lot in the power department. And Dick Allen, he doesn't accumulate as many stats as a lot of other guys and before him or after him. But when you really look at what he did in that era, playing in horrible parks too for hitting home runs. I mean, big, cavernous, use, gigantic cookie cutter stadiums all across the league at that point. I mean, just these giant fields and he's able to do when you really contextualize it, and that's why he was a darling for a lot of people when early sabermetrics started and people like Bill James were really doing writing about analytics and baseball and trying to quantify this stuff and normalize it or whatever. He was one that kept coming up of like, oh my God, this guy is way better than we even knew at the time, because you look at what he was doing in the era he was doing it in, and it's like, this guy's one of the best power hitters of all time, adjusted for his era and adjusted for the parks he was playing in or whatever. It's like, oh dear God, this guy needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Why is he not anywhere near the Hall of Fame? There's a multitude of reasons why he wasn't, which we'll probably touch on here briefly. But yeah, he was one of the first ones that I remember reading about in the days when I started really kind of poring over analytics in baseball. When I turned that corner as a baseball fan, I really started to get into the numbers and stuff and started reading Bill James and reading Baseball Prospectus and that sort of stuff. He was one of those guys that, like you said, was immediately lauded as like, people that don't know the game and don't know the game like we know the game, they don't get it with Dick Allen. But if you know the game and you know how to study the history and study the analytics or whatever, this guy's like overwhelmingly needs to be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best power hitters of all time.
Yeah. Not that there weren't counter arguments. I mean, you mentioned Bill James. Bill James said that I think in 2005, the last time he ranked all of the players in the history of Major League Baseball in terms of the top players in each position, I think he had Dick Allen ranked 15th all time among first basemen, which is kind of hard. He played a million positions, but he classified him with the first basemen. Let me see how many games he played at first base. Yeah, I guess he played more first base than any other position.
Mostly, I'd say you'd probably have to put him at first base. Yeah.
Yeah, it's he had 800 games at first base and 652 games at third base. So, and then a little bit scattered everywhere else. But he had him listed as the 15th greatest first baseman of all time. But Bill James was also and has always been one of the strongest advocates to not put Dick Allen in the Hall of Fame for all the other stuff. No less than 3 times did he just quit on his team and go home. Like he would just say, I'm done this year. And he would just disappear without telling anybody. And that'd be it. I
don't like this guy. I'm not coming back. Like famously the White Sox, he was a White Sox player for a number of years. He didn't really like Ron Santo. Ron Santo was on the White Sox in I think the last year of his career. I forget if he played any more years after that.
74.
Yeah, so he had been a Cub, obviously, through the last years and years and years prior to that. Plays out the strings of his career as a White Sox. And, I mean, Dick Allen's not the first guy to say Ron Santo was an asshole, but Dick Allen's the first one to ever say, you know what? I'm going home. Fuck this guy. And just basically,
I quit. He just quit.
With weeks left of the season, just said, I don't like that guy. That guy's a prick. I'm out. Bye. And just left.
Yeah, he just took off. Yeah. And then they tried to trade him to the Braves, I think, and then he just said, "Nah, I'm not going to play for the Braves."
Atlanta,
I don't
like
work
that
for
either.
me, brother.
I don't want to work. Atlanta doesn't work for me, brother. Yeah, that's perfect.
And he walked out on the Phillies, and I think 69. I might have my years mixed up, but you get the point. And then his final year, when he went to Oakland in 77, that was the year after they lost all those players to free agency and their dynasty fell apart. And he was one of the guys they signed to replace them. And he played about 2 months for Oakland. And again, he just decided, fuck this. And he just didn't come to a game one day and they never saw him again. Then he showed up for spring training in 78. And they're like, that's kind of
awesome. That's pretty, you got to respect that. The Costanza, just to show back up at spring training and be like, all right, guys, how's it going? How was your summer? How was how was the winter? How are the kids? What's going on? Just add like nothing, like you didn't just quit on the team last year. You got to respect that. You got to tip your cap to that.
I mean, they cut him. He didn't make the team, but and that was it for him. But he just so no less than 3 times, and probably more than that I'm forgetting. He just quit on teams, and there were other. He drove Gene Mauch, one of the managers he played for. He crazy because he would never come to batting practice. He'd show up 10 minutes before the game and just put his uniform on and trot out the first base.
Anyway, he didn't need it. Look at him. He didn't need it. He was hitting dingers no matter what.
A lot of his teammates thought he didn't give a fuck whether they won or lost. He just didn't have that competitive spirit, but he was just a great hitter. He had a lot of Pete Rose in him to where, like, he loved to gamble. So, he'd be like, where the fuck is Dick Allen? Like, we have a game in 15 minutes. He'd be at the fucking horse track or the dog track. And then he'd show up in the, bottom of the first inning. He's just things that would be incomprehensible today that a player could never get away with. And really, he didn't get away with it then because it really hurt his reputation. But there was other stuff too. He was a civil rights advocate, and he went through all that racism in the minor leagues that a lot of players of his age went through at that time,
and the majors too. I mean,
the majors. We tend to Philly.
Yeah, especially in Philadelphia, we tend to think of like, it's the 1970s. Everything is good and hunky dory. And no, Reggie Jackson can tell you all about it, and Dick Allen would tell you about it too. Is that he was, booed and stuff was thrown at him by his own fans, just because
Dick Allen wore a helmet in the field for half of his career because he'd have things thrown at him the entire game
by his own fans for the record.
By his own fans, by the home fans. So for like half of his career, he wore his batting helmet in the field.
Yeah. Because
people would throw batteries and a lot of it was racism and a lot of it was everybody thought he was an asshole and he was disliked and all that. So there's just a lot going on with him. And he was one of the worst fielders, like in the history of baseball. Like that was one of the other knocks. Like all his managers and teammates were like, this guy just doesn't give a fuck about fielding. But what was funny about that is at the end of his career, he would get in disputes with managers because he hated pinch hitting. He hated pinch hitting to the point where sometimes there were games where he didn't start and he knew they were going to use him as a pinch hitter later. And he would disappear in like the 6th inning and get dressed and go home because he didn't want to pinch hit like in the 8th or 9th inning. And when he went to, I want to say that final year in Oakland, I think it was, he had a provision written into his contract that he was not to ever DH. So even though he was like this horrible fielder, he hated coming off the bench. He didn't like the pinch hit, and he refused the DH. And the Oakland manager, who I think may have been Dick Williams. I'm going to double check that.
No,
Jack McKeon.
Oh, was it Jack McKeon?
Jack
I was going to
McKeon.
say I wasn't. I thought it was Dick Williams, but that's that.
I always confuse Dick Williams and Jack McKeon for whatever reason. But it was Jack McKeon. He wrote him in the DH one day, and he wasn't aware of the contract. And Allen was like, I'm not doing it. It's in my contract. I can't DH. So either stick me out there or I'm going home. And he went home. It was one of the other times he went home. So it's just, he was a very surly guy for a lot of different reasons, some justified, some absolutely not justified. His fielding statistics, however much weight you put in them, back up the idea that he was an absolute hack with the glove. But in terms of his hitting, I mean, Willie Mays, I think it was Willie Mays. It was either Mays or Aaron.
I think it was Aaron. It was Aaron. I know the quote you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
It says that he said Dick Allen hit baseballs harder than anybody he ever saw in his life. And that's Hank Aaron saying that. I mean, so where are you going to get higher praise than that? And you look at the numbers, it bears that out. I mean, if he played today, he'd be a $40 million player with his hitting ability. I mean, some of the seasons he had, he did win an MVP and he did win Rookie of the Year. He's got some Soto-esque seasons. I know Juan Soto's in the news. I mean, you look at Dick Allen's stats. There are some Juan Soto-esque seasons in there. He led the league in walks the year he won the MVP, and he's on base at a 420 clip. He slugged 600, 37 homers, 113 RBIs, hit 308. That's Juan Soto, Rich, and he's doing it in a pitcher's era, like you noted before. So just an incredible hitter and someone that we've advocated for the Hall of Fame, even with the warts. I think a hitter of that magnitude. And, the Phillies did eventually try to make it right with him. I think they retired his number.
They did. Yeah, I forget. Not that long ago, but yeah, they did. They actually retired. I think they got word that he was not doing well, and I want to say at some point in 2020. Now, unfortunately, the worst year ever to have your number retired at probably a empty stadium or whatever. But yeah, I think they realized he was about to go, so that I think it was like a couple of weeks before he passed away, they retired his number to kind of make things right. Yeah. And now he gets here in the Hall of Fame, of course, 4 years after he passes away, but still, and by the way, probably deserves to go in the Hall of Fame alone from that Sports Illustrated cover, where if you've never seen it, I think the best way to do it is type in your Google Dick Allen Sports Illustrated. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Dick Allen Sports Illustrated. You will never see a better that's like an iconic sports photo. I fucking love that photo so much. It is Dick Allen during the White Sox very weird phase where they were wearing red, even though they're not
pinstripes.
Yeah, red pinstripes and red hat and all this sort of stuff. And it's Dick Allen juggling his balls. And the headline is "Season of Surprises: Chicago's Dick Allen juggles his image." The best part though is he's in the dugout with a fucking cigarette, with a lit cigarette, juggling baseballs while obviously a game is going on and the catcher in the background's getting his gear on or whatever. There's Dick Allen juggling baseballs, smoking a cigarette. I mean, that's
big old menthol cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Classic menthol cigarette with his very 70s. He's got an afro hanging out of his batting helmet.
The big mutton chops.
And a big old mustache with a cig hanging out. That's it, man. Yeah. That's manhood right there. That's a man.
I mean, he just a lot of people thought he was one of the coolest guys going, and that's true for Dave Parker too, who's one of the coolest baseball players of all time. So
the Cobra.
Two guys who, and he is very ill, so he gets to go into the Hall before he passes because he's been ill for a number of years now. And Dave Parker, he'll probably have one of the lowest WAR totals for any Hall of Famer, but the thing about Parker was, there were a lot of people who thought he was the best player in baseball from about 1975 to 1979. I mean, it was I won't say a consensus, but it was a near consensus that he was the most talented and best player in the league. And between those years, he was a top 5 MVP finisher nearly every year. He won the MVP, of course, in 78. An incredible Gold Glove level fielder who had one of the strongest arms he's got the best arm I have ever seen, because I did see Dave Parker towards the back end of his career, and I've obviously seen all the highlights of his throws. I'm not old enough to remember Roberto Clemente or Al Kaline or anybody like that, but I've seen everybody from, say the 80s on, and Parker had a fucking gun. I mean, the one of the most iconic highlights in baseball history in terms of a throw from the outfield is from that All-Star game where he throws Al Downing out at the plate. You know, and Gary Carter doesn't get enough credit for the tag on that play. I think,
it's a great tag.
because
Gary Carter rocked.
Yeah, I mean, Parker catches that ball on one bounce, and he just fires a fucking frozen rope, a laser to home plate, and Gary Carter makes an incredible play just to snag it out of the air. I mean, that ball felt like it was still rising when it got the home plate, and Carter has to leap up and catch it. You know, and then he makes a great blocks the plate and tags Downing. And you know, Carter kind of gets ignored on that play. But the thing about that, and it's all over YouTube, you know, that's a famous throw. In that bright yellow Pirates uniform, the top and the bottom, is that was his second assist. He threw out Jim Rice at third base in that game as well on a blooper down the line that fell in between Parker and Joe Morgan, who was playing second base. And, you know, in that AstroTurf, and the ball bounced up 15 feet, right? And Parker grabbed it in foul territory right in front of the bullpen mounds. Because remember, the bullpens were down the lines in those days. And flat-footed, he turns around, dealing with the bullpen mound and everything, and throws a laser to third base to gun out Jim Rice. He had 2 outfield assists in that game, and he won All-Star Game MVP off the backs of those 2 great throws. So, you know, his arm was just legendary. Arguably the best player in the game from about 75 to 79 or so. And then he had the terrible injuries, and he also had, MLB had the cocaine problems, you know, whatever happened there. The NBA went through that around the same time. Mm-hmm. You know, Walter Davis, of course, the Phoenix Suns. But baseball, he was one of those guys that got wrapped up with the coke. And at the same time, he had those knee problems. He had those injury problems. And he lost a couple prime years of his career. The thing about Parker is people will say, oh, you know, the reason he didn't get in Hall of Fame, he didn't have the counting stats and all that. He still had over 2,700 hits.
Well, he played for he played probably for about 7 years longer than most people think he did. Including, like, I remember not that long ago, I was watching a 89 Oakland Athletics game for some reason on YouTube or whatever, and this guy Parker comes up to the plate, and it's, you know, I'm like, this looks a lot like Dave Parker. I'm like, is that his brother? So I'm like, no, that's Dave Parker. I'm like, what? I even forgot that he was on that team. Yeah, he and that's they went to the World Series, right? Wasn't that they won it? Yeah, they won it, right? He
played for them in the World Series in '88 and '89.
Oh, that's right. It was both years. Yeah, right.
He was their DH because that, you know, back then DHs were usually guys like that, guys who couldn't play the field anymore, older guys, because he was probably in his late 30s. And it was guys like Dave Parker and Dave Winfield, people like that who could still hit.
Eddie Murray would do that in the mid-90s too.
Yeah, guys like, exactly, but they were, you couldn't put them in, you know. Now the DH position is more whoever's not playing that night, or, you know, you have a right-handed and left-handed DH. It's a different position now. But back then you had these full-time DHs who were aging players who were once great hitters, who were still good hitters. They might not be great anymore. And yeah, he played the last 3 or 4 years of his career as a full-time DH. He went to the Reds in free agency in '84 after the Pirates, and really everybody thought he was washed up with the injuries, and he revived his career with the Reds. He led the league in homers in '85. And my formative years as a very young fan, I remember those were those Pete Rose managed teams that would finish second every year, which in modern baseball would be playoff teams now. But then you had to win your division. So those Pete Rose managed teams would finish second every year, and they were built around Dave Parker and a young Eric Davis and Tom Browning. And then they traded Parker in the '87 offseason to Oakland, like you just mentioned. That's how he ended up on those great Oakland teams with the Bash brothers. And the Reds got Jose Rijo back in that trade.
It's a good trade. And good trade for both teams, honestly.
Yeah. So, and then they called up Barry Larkin and Chris Sabo and Paul O'Neill, and that became the team that won the World Series for the Reds in '90. And who did they beat? The Oakland A's, right? So he was on those early Reds teams with Rose that couldn't quite get over the hump. And that trade for Jose Rijo was one of the moves that ended up sparking the Reds to a championship. And then, you know, he went on to finish up his career as a full-time DH. But, I mean, he has over 2,700 hits, 339 home runs. Look at his career line, 290, 339, 471.
That'll work.
And again, you won an MVP. And just, you know, you look at those years in the late 70s on the We Are Family Pirates with Willie Stargell.
Oh, just a great team. All-time cool team and all-time great team.
Yeah, I mean, he was a 330 hitter. who would slug almost 600. I mean, he had speed, and he was a great fielder with a cannon of an arm. I mean, Dave Parker at his peak was a great player. And, people right now automatically, they like to look at the WAR totals these days. And I get it. He only accumulated about 40 WAR, which typically isn't a Hall of Fame player. But when you have a 40 WAR player who also was regarded as the best player in the game for a 5-year period and has an MVP and has World Series championships, because he won it twice, 79 with the Pirates and then 89 in Oakland, where he was a key contributor on both teams. He's got enough other stuff, I think, to where it's not outlandish to have him in the Hall of Fame. And I think it's good that, he got in before, because he's sick and, he probably doesn't have a ton of time left, but he gets to enjoy the fact that he's a Hall of Famer, but multi-time Gold Glover, multi-time batting champ, 7-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner, All-Star Game MVP, League MVP. He won one of the early home run derbies, and people forget about that. And definitely in the Hall of Cool. I mean, one of the coolest players to ever step on.
The Cobra. His name's the Cobra. Come on.
6'6" and, nearly, 250 pounds. Just it could run like the wind. You know what he was? He was Dave Winfield, but he had injury problems. And Winfield stayed healthy. Very comparable players. They were both super tall, around 6'5", 6'6", similar skill sets where they were 5-tool players, even at that size. They both could have played the modern game. But, Winfield got to all those benchmarks, the 400 home runs, the 3,000 hits, because he stayed healthy and Parker didn't. But, very comparable players. Dave Winfield, I mean, people say he could have been a professional in any of the 3 major sports. He got drafted. Didn't he get drafted?
He got drafted by all of them. Yeah, all 3. He got drafted by all 3, I believe.
Yeah, oh, there you go. I didn't even know he's an NFL draft. Yeah, so, I mean, just a superlative athlete. And
let me double
Dave
check
Parker
that. Let me make sure. I want to be accurate on that. I know for sure he got drafted by. Let's see. I want to say it was all 3, but let's find out for sure, just in case. All right. Let's see here. I'll find this as you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, either way, I mean, I know he was drafted in the NBA. I know that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Drafted in baseball. Drafted in MLB. Major League Baseball, NBA, and NFL.
All 3.
4 teams in 3 different sports he was drafted by. That's incredible.
4 teams in 3 different sports.
Yeah, how'd that happen? So following college, Winfield was drafted by 4 teams in 3 different sports. The San Diego Padres selected him as a pitcher with the 4th overall pick in the MLB draft. He was also drafted by the Atlanta Hawks in the 5th round of the 1973 NBA draft and by the Utah Stars. There you go. In the 6th round of the 73 ABA draft. Although he never played college football, the Minnesota Vikings selected him in the 17th round of the 1973 NFL draft. He was one of 5 players ever to be drafted by 3 professional sports, the others being George Carter, Noel Janke, Mickey McCarty, and Dave Logan. So, and one of 3 athletes along with Carter and McCarty to be drafted by 4 different leagues as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you're 6'6", 250 and you run like that,
they'll find something for you. Yeah, they'll find something for you. Yeah,
they're like, that guy's a defensive end. I mean, we could teach him how to sack a quarterback, right, or play tight end or something. It's like people would say, like, but so that's kind of the same situation. And yeah, so those 2 guys. Who we've stumped for before for the Hall of Famer. And then Rocky Colavito died too, 91 years old. Power hitter in the 50s and 60s for the Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, and then, a million other teams, I think, at the end of his career. Led the league in home runs in 1959, Rocky Colavito, which to lead the American League in home runs in 1959 with the Mickey Mantle floating around, not easy to do. Really good player, 40 foot, over 40 WAR for him. I mean, he's talking about Parker, really solid player, multi-time All-Star, Colavito in the days where they had 2 All-Star games per season. So you kind of got to, pump up those All-Star numbers a little bit, but 91 years old. He's one of the last 1950 stars really left, because those guys are all in their 90s now. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you played in the 50s, you're up there. Willie Mays recently passing away, over 90, and Colavito was 91 years old. So what a name too, Rocky Colavito.
Colavito, Rocco Domenecchio, Rocky Colavito Jr. What a name.
from the Bronx,
From
New
the
York.
Bronx. What do
right?
you think this guy is? This guy Czech? Is this guy Czech or what's this nationality of?
What's his background? I wonder. What's his background? Yeah, so
Where's he? Where did
yeah,
he? Where did his family immigrate from?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Rocco
definitely,
Domenecchio. Rocco Domenecchio. Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, Calavito. Yeah, just an early Italian-American sports hero from that time. Probably was destined to be a Yankee. I think he played a few games for him at the end there. But, yeah, he passes away, too. He probably hit, let me see, he hit probably close to 400 home runs, I would guess. He hit 374 home runs. It's a lot of home runs.
That is, especially in that era. Yeah,
runs.
definitely in that era for sure.
Yeah, because he played into the mid to late 60s when Dick Allen was getting started. So, yeah, that's our, it's funny. We start off talking about the history of the show and how the format never changes. And there you go. There's some baseball talk, which half the audience is going to love and tell us how much they loved it and how we should have done it for another half hour. And the other half is going to say, "Oh, I had to skip that shit. Why are you talking about baseball again?" And that's
the essence. That's it.
That's been the history of the show.
That's
been
it.
the history of the show.
Absolutely. So, yeah. We're not for everybody, but we're kind of for a lot of different people. We do. There's somebody out there that hates every segment that we do. But that's okay, because in totality, I think most people like what the show is, and it's full 3 hours. But yeah, it's
funny that 79 All-Star game. I think that's
remember All-Star games, Joe. Do you remember All-Star games when they were like a thing that you could watch, and they were good?
But whoever's broadcasting that, if you watch that Parker throw, I believe it's Tony Kubek. Because it would have been, is this something we can Google? I'm sure it is. Let me see if I can look that up. But the point I wanted to make was, if you watch that highlight, and it sounds like Tony Kubek, he says Dave Parker, who many feel is the greatest player in the game today. So if you think I'm like exaggerating,
or just blowing smoke up this guy's ass because he just got into the Hall of Fame, no.
Right. Yeah, because Kubek says, he flat out says it when he makes the throw, and he's talking people through the replay. So, that was a real thing. That's I can remember when I was very young, my old man and my uncles talking, sitting around at family gatherings talking baseball in the 80s, and just I'd sit there and listen, under the learning tree, and they would talk about how great Dave Parker was like 10 years earlier, and when I was a little kid, he was a good player, but he wasn't like this mythical great player like they spoke of him. You know what I mean? And then when I got older and started reading and watching highlights and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, they were right. I mean, he was incredible, and people thought he was the best player in the game. So that was him at the peak of his powers. That's a legendary highlight. It really is.
And real quick too, I linked it in the show notes, or I linked it in the chat room, I should say, right, so the $10 listeners can find it. But you could probably find it as well if you want to type in Dave Parker cigarette. There's also a great photo of Dave Parker and Willie Stargell, I believe, is in the background, also ripping cigs, either midway through a game, between innings, before a game, whatever it might be. Different era, definitely a different era. I don't think you mentioned Juan Soto.
They were probably ripping more than that when
Willie and Dave were probably had to
when the photographers weren't around. They were
those guys. They certainly liked other things. That whole great fun team. They had a lot of guys that had a lot of extracurricular activities. But there you go. That another great image, and again, just a different era. You were talking about Juan Soto earlier. I don't think Juan Soto will be caught, throwing up a dart, putting a dart into his mouth right before a game or whatever anytime soon as he's hits the field as a $700 million whatever player. But anyway,
yeah.
Okay, you just linked an even better photo.
I just posted?
Yeah, an even better photo of Dave Parker wearing a shirt that says actually, you should describe this. I want you to describe this shirt.
Yeah, it's got to be late 70s, Pirates with the box hats, and right in the middle of that We Are Family era, and he's got a t-shirt on wearing this gaudy hat, and t-shirt says, "If you hear any noise, it's just me and the boys bopping." His hands on his hips, just
right?
Looking cool as fuck. Yeah,
nobody's this cool anymore. Who's this cool?
Nah,
Look at that. Look at that dude. Who's this cool?
You can't be that cool.
Who's as cool as Dick Allen?
Not today.
Nobody.
No, they're just not.
Anyway, let's get to professional wrestling. Let's get into something that's really cool, Joe. Professional wrestling. So we have like 7 different ways that this thing can go. I want you to choose. Joe, where are we going here? Because we're going to talk about New Japan's World Tag League final. We're going to review that show, check in with the Wrestle Kingdom lineups as well. All Japan Pro Wrestling Tag League final, we'll review that, as well as the lineups that they have coming up in the New Year's, as well as some news and notes around All Japan Pro Wrestling. Eric Bischoff, his one-shot show for MLW. We have a review of that. WWE Deadline, presented by the stars of NXT. That's weird. They're not calling them NXT shows anymore. They're calling them WWE shows. We'll review that. We got to preview WWE's Saturday night's main event. We got to talk about Rey Fenix. We got to talk about AEW's All In Texas on sale event. We got to talk about attendance and ratings and fake crowd noise in WWE. Where do you want to go? There's a lot of different directions, a lot of different countries, continents. Where do you want to go?
I want to talk about that New Day segment.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. So WWE piping in fake crowd noise during the New Day segment, and not a new thing that they've done. Obviously, they've done it before, but to me, this caught you and I off guard a little bit this week because of how it was used and when it was used.
I mean, I don't know if I'd say it caught me off guard. I mean, I know what you mean, but what disappoints me is I really enjoyed the turn the week before, to the point where I even did some audio on it on a Flagship Plus last week, where I did a Raw review. Is that like the second Raw review in the history of the Flagship?
We did. I know we did a live one when they did the Raw 25 or whatever it may be. But other than that, it's few and far between a WWE Monday Night Raw review.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the segment so much, and I wanted to talk about some other segments on the show that I actually did a Raw review behind the paywall. It was a great Raw review. I was so impressed with my work after I did that. But anyway, I really enjoyed their turn on Big E the week before. I thought it was, this is not news to anyone, but we are not the biggest fans of the modern WWE style. But I thought it was one of those rare WWE segments that really landed with me, which hasn't really been the case with most of what they do. And I thought all 3 guys just knocked it out of the park, delivering the angle the way that they did, and I did praise it behind the paywall in that review. And then, they come back this week, and it's our first chance to hear.
Real quick, one thing that was great about that segment, and something that you put over, and I thought I really enjoyed about it as well, and I saw a lot of other people put it over, was how subtle some of the stuff was in that segment. That Big E didn't get a microphone to say, "What are you guys doing? What's going on?" You know what I mean? It was just Big E's face, unmiked, as the other guys are kind of, dragging him down and talking shit about him and all this. It was done in a very organic way that made it feel like, oh, this feels more real than a lot of the other stuff that this company does. And it hit people in a lot of different ways. Even people that don't love WWE, don't love modern WWE for a lot of the reasons they don't love it, and a lot of the reasons that we're going to talk about here in a second. That segment, I was with you, and I saw several people that I know that are not big fans of modern WWE praise that segment for just how real and organic and natural it all felt, in a sea of fake and a sea of a glossy, overdone, overproduced WWE. Every single bit of other WWE programming is so loud and so, unsubtle and light filled and shiny and bright and glossy and all that sort of stuff. And this is one moment that felt real and organic and natural,
overly
scripted
and overproduced. And this, it really didn't feel like your typical like Bloodline 20-minute corny ass talking segment that kind of is repellent. That style is repellent to us, and that segment didn't feel like that. Now some people, there were some good debates in our Patreon comments on the segment. Some people felt that there were some logic holes and whatnot. I understood the points that people were making, but overall, I didn't necessarily agree with them. But the segment itself, I thought was really good, and I thought all 3 guys were really good. And they come back this week with Kofi and Xavier Woods having their first chance to address their why they turned on Big E the week before, and it's right back to all of the stuff that we hate And right back, I'm just shaking my head watching this segment because I thought it was utter shit, because it was just right back to typical WWE, where here's what they do. And then, I know you wrote an article about the piped in noise, and I'm going to hand you the floor to talk about that. I'm going to set you up real good here. So what they do is in WWE, and is they very clearly scripted out a segment that by design was for the New Day to get booed out of the ring. Okay. That was a scripted segment. Segment 4, or whatever the fuck it was, New Day gets booed out of the ring. The problem with that is you can't predict how fans are going to react to something, right? Your intent as a performer could be to go out there and get booed out of the ring, or to get booed, or to get cheered, or to set up an angle or whatever, but it's your job to go out there as a performer and then find a way to manipulate the emotions of the fans and get that done. But that's not how things work in WWE. And this is why I hate the modern WWE style. How it works there is they will say, in this example, New Day gets booed out of the ring, and that's what's going to happen no matter what, okay? So what they did was they sent them out there, and every time one of them would attempt to speak, they did the thing that they used to do for Dom Mysterio. They slapped the button, the MP3, the boo MP3, right? They'd slap the button on that, and there are some fan videos on Twitter where it's blatant that that's what this was.
I'm going to play those clips. I'm going to play those clips, by the way. When you're done, I'll play the clips so people can hear it.
Here's the thing. I don't want any arguments from anyone. If you don't think they piped this in, you're wrong. This isn't an opinion, okay? It's blatant. And every time one of them would try to speak, the production team would hit the button, and the boo sound would start. And then the WWE fans that were there, because they love to just play along with the show, that's their role in the show, and I have a larger point to make about that later, they took their cue, and then they would boo. The problem was, these fans in that building, and it's so funny because everyone's saying how much heat this segment had, and it was it's the complete opposite, because these fans weren't feeling passionate hate about these guys because their boos weren't sustained. And then every time the crowd would come down a little, they'd slap the button again to tell the crowd, no, keep it up.
Right. Keep booing.
Keep booing.
Keep booing, please.
Because, and this is no knock on Kofi Kingston or Xavier Woods. People are going to take it as one, but it's not. They didn't possess the ability that night to get the fans to boo them so loudly that they couldn't hear themselves speak, because the fans were not mad enough at them to produce that, let alone mad enough at them to literally boo them out of the ring. That's not what happened. That's what was scripted. And to achieve that, what WWE does to ensure it is they slap that button. They know that their modern fan base is a fan base that goes to these shows to participate in the show and play along, right? That's why those fans are there. Oh, it's time to sing along with the entrance theme. Oh, it's time to boo Dom Mysterio. Oh, it's time to... The fans take their cues when they go to WWE shows, and they like being part of the show. Oh, this is the part of the show where we put our hands in the air with our finger up because Roman Reigns is here, right? I can give you a million examples. They're part of the show, and they like being part of the show. And that's part of the allure of going to a WWE show these days. You get to be part of the show. And this was part of that, okay? Nothing Kofi and Xavier Woods said or did, either last week or this week, okay, initiated those boos. What initiated those boos was the production team hitting a button and turning up the volume on the piped in boos to make it louder than it actually was in the building. It's booing with a smile. Go look at the footage of those fans. I used to say this with Dom too, when they used to do this with Dom segments. These fans they don't have this visceral, angry reaction at the New Day. They're booing and they're smiling because they know they are part of the show. They're not mad at these guys. This isn't heat and hate between the fans and the New Day last night, just like it never was with Dom. It's, they want us to boo now, so now it's time to boo. And, they took their cue. It wasn't the performers inciting that reaction. And it's that lack of organic reaction that you get from WWE crowds. And from what WWE doesn't want that anyway. They want their pre-planned scripted segment of New Day getting booed out of the building to happen just as they have scripted it. And they make sure that it does. In my opinion, that's not pro wrestling. That's not good pro wrestling at minimum, but it's not pro wrestling at all. At that point, you're just a television show with a live studio audience, and you're telling them how you want them to react.
Yeah, at this point, just have big. The Titantron can just say boo, cheer, yell. Yeah. It could. Let's just do that. Let's just have signs that tell everybody. You don't have to pipe it in. You just say, okay, now everybody boo, boo. Yeah, that's right where we're at.
And yeah. That's not what I like when I watch pro wrestling. I like when fans react organically and their emotions match what they're seeing in whether that's positive, negative, or whatever, whether something's getting rejected. I like natural reactions from fans, and that's the total antithesis of what you get in WWE. Their fans go to shows to play along and be part of the show. It's a totally different energy than what I want out of my pro wrestling, because this isn't pro wrestling. Rich, they've been telling us it's not pro wrestling for 30 years. When are we going to start to listen and agree? They don't even think they're pro wrestling. You know, the matches are little distractions between their one-act plays.
And entrances, yeah. It's entrances and one-act plays.
And entrances and one-act play. And that's what their fans like. And it works for them. Mm-hmm. You know, it obviously is working right now. This current fan base loves this shit. But Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods did not get booed out of that ring. They were scripted to get booed out of the ring. So they dropped the mics and left, and that's not what happened there. They didn't really get booed out of the ring. The fans weren't that mad at them where they weren't let them get a word in edgewise. They're slapping that button and then turning the sound up because the fans they knew damn well the fans were not going to boo these guys out of the ring.
Not enough. They knew that they were going to get boos, but they didn't know they were going to get enough boos. And there's one thing that we're going to play in particular that makes it very obvious, like what you're saying, is because Xavier Woods is starting to cut a promo, then he stops, and then there's silence for a couple seconds, and then the boos come in because he was told, oh, the crowd's going to boo a lot, so stop. So he's like, all right, so last week, boo. Well, you know what I mean? It comes. There's that little gap of time where you're like, oh, yeah, that's when he was supposed to stop
because the production was late on the button.
Right.
They knew ahead of time production was going to do this. That's why he stopped talking and you didn't hear anything, because the production, someone was late on the button in that instance. It's inorganic, and that's why, and what bothers me. If WWE look, we've known that they did this for Dom for a year. They don't do it with him anymore, but it's the same thing. They just took from the Dom playbook.
Right. And for the record, we're not talking about TV, because some people are saying, yeah, they do crowd sweetening forever. No, in the arena, booing and cheering and stuff in the arena. We're not talking about TV production. Of course, they've done that for years. They've done that for decades. They have done, crowd sweetening and adding boos and adding cheers and stuff like that. Switching boos to cheers, switching cheers to boos. That we're not talking about that. We're talking about in the arena. That's different than doing it in front of the, on a tape show or whatever. This is in the arena that we're talking about here. That's the big difference from what they've done decades prior.
Yeah, this is no different. And we said they were doing this with Dom, and it's the same thing. People thought Dom was getting all this great heat. And the best point I ever heard made about that was Dave Meltzer, when he said even the company knows that Dom's heat isn't real, because if it was, he'd be the number one heel in the company. He'd be working main events, because anyone that's getting that much heat is going to draw money. So, and that was such a great point that I wish I had thought of first. And it's true. Dom's never been anything other than a mid-carder. That's all he'll ever be, because the heat wasn't real. Just like the heat last night wasn't real. So what bothers me is when you see all this talk of what an all-time great heat segment that was, and I'm just so grossed out by that. Because, historically in pro wrestling, this doesn't even rate, because it's manufactured. Mm-hmm. It's manufactured by someone pressing a button. And the fans doing like a Rocky Horror Picture Show style play along to it, which is, I don't know how many people even remember that. Do you remember people going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show and you sing along and you chant, and that's what this is now with these WWE crowds. These weren't authentic emotions that these people and the performers. And again, this isn't a knock on them. This would have been impossible for them to go out there and find a way to get booed out of the building. And you know how I know that they knew it was impossible? Because they did it this way to ensure it. They knew they couldn't go out there and get that
one
level
thing
of heat.
I will say something about that is, like, I do think that also sucks too from the performer standpoint, because but again, I'm not saying that Kofi and Xavier said no, let us go do it, but like in any other era, you can imagine certain great heels of all time would say, fuck that. If somebody said, hey, we're going to pipe in, they'd say, I'll get those boos. I will make sure that people boo me. I will go out there. Give me a couple minutes. It might not happen immediately, but I'll get them to boo me. Maybe they go to the ring saying, hey, we're going to hopefully get to a point where they start booing us a bunch. I would like that challenge. And that's kind of what the art of pro wrestling is that challenge to say, no. Give me 5 minutes, and by the end of that segment, I will have the entire arena booing us out of the building. And the fact that the company didn't trust them to do it, the fact that these guys, I don't know what, if they trusted themselves or not, it doesn't matter. It's just like, we didn't even get that point. And that's one of the key pieces of the art of pro wrestling is crowd manipulation. But it's the show don't tell crowd manipulation. It's the effort of the wrestlers to get the crowd to be manipulated, not the company telling the crowd, now is when we want you to be manipulated. Here's how we're manipulating you. Please follow along now.
Or you're not loud enough, so we're going to just do it ourselves. Right. And then their fans pick up on that. And now, look, I don't know if I'm not saying the fans there knew that they were piping in the boos, but the fans there heard the escalating boos and then joined in. So there's really no difference when you look at it from that standpoint. And then the question becomes a philosophical discussion. Does it matter, or is that just another way of doing a work? I know where I stand on that. I think it's horse shit, and I hate it. And to me, it subverts the arts of pro wrestling, and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. Now, WWE will tell you, who fucking cares? The segment comes across the way we wanted it to come across, and people are praising it, and that's all that matters. And I can't sit here and tell you they're wrong. What I can sit here and tell you is I think it sucks. That I can tell you. Right? So that's kind of where I stand on it. You know, they find a way to get the reactions they want, and they find a way to get these things over, and isn't that what working is, Rich? Right? Like, so can we even argue it from that standpoint?
Well, I mean, like, as a wrestler, think about being a wrestler and you train, you do all this sort of stuff, and then the company just says, oh yeah, we'll make the crowd do whatever we want to do. You just go out there and here's your script, here's what you're supposed to say, and then we'll do the rest. You just come out here and say your couple of words, and I would hate that. That would suck. To me, that would suck if I was a wrestler and I grew up wanting to. I mean, I think that's some of the fun parts of being a professional wrestler, is to manipulate the crowd and to get the crowd to boo you, or get the crowd to cheer you, or get the crowd to react to whatever you're doing or whatever. And I would really hate to have a future where the wrestlers are just basically, you know, to fuck Vince Russo may have won, that they're just stage performers. They just go out there, and then the company says, okay, here's what we want you to say, and then don't even worry about, you know, we'll do the rest. Like, just go out there and do the very basic stuff, and we'll hit the boo and the cheer button and the applause button and the this is awesome button and the you know, the you deserve it button and stuff, and you just go and do whatever you're gonna do, but don't worry about it. We'll do the crowd reactions and stuff. That's a future that I don't want to be a part of. That's a wrestling future that I don't fucking want. That is the future,
and this is what I've been warning people of. This is what's coming. What's coming? It's what it is.
It's what it is. It's there. Yeah, I mean, it was on NXT too. We're not talking about the NXT show, but it was all over that NXT show too. The fake crowd noise.
And it was so obvious. And I'm like, this sucks. But yet, if you look all over the place, even people who should know better, who I'm not going to name, are saying, "Oh, New Day gets booed out of the building. What a great segment."
Well, here's the thing: do they know better, or do they not? Like, and that's how I ended my piece. I ended my piece this week saying WWE production is so good at what they do, they've successfully manipulated fans, reviewers, and pundits alike, who either don't notice obvious crowd sweetening or don't care, and I don't know which is worse.
Well, we always reference our conversation with Cody, and the debate here is his point of view to a very similar discussion point. I don't even remember what triggered it with that. And I don't think it was Dom. It was before he was in WWE.
Yeah, he was still in AEW, I believe.
So it wouldn't have been Dom, but whatever was. And his point was, well, the end game is just to have a successful segment and get whatever you're trying to get over, right? And I can't really argue with that. It's such a nuanced discussion, because maybe in this day and age with guaranteed money from media entities, he's right. In the old days, the idea of, and I'm not saying that piped in reactions are something that hasn't existed for decades, because they have, and you wrote about it. But in the super old days, you wouldn't want to do that as a promoter, because you'd want to know what was really over. because pushing what was truly genuinely over was your livelihood depended on it. Their livelihoods don't depend on that anymore. You can tell whatever stories you want to tell because the money's guaranteed. So if the story you want to tell is that the New Day is going to get booed out of the building, you're going to slap that button in production to tell that scripted part of this story like we're doing a live studio audience television show, because, Rich, it doesn't matter whether it's really over to that extent or not to where they're getting booed out of the building.
Yeah.
You only have to successfully get that story over to the and they have, because everyone thinks New Day got legitimately booed out of the building last night. Do you understand the point I'm making?
Oh, I definitely do. I definitely do.
So from that standpoint, he was right when he said, because he basically
I found out what it was
well,
from. I found out the background if you want, real quickly. This was when Matt Cardona, remember when Matt Cardona was in GCW doing the match with Nick Gage, and GCW had a bunch of plants throw bottles at Matt Cardona, throw like beer bottles and stuff at Matt Cardona at the beginning of the match, and then sort of egg on other fans, hey, if you got a bottle, throw it at Matt Cardona or whatever. And that's basically how that started. And your point was, and this is exactly what you said, quote, plants have been a part of wrestling since the beginning. I get that. The art is manipulating the emotions from inside the ring. It feels a little... Oh, God damn it. Oh, sorry. It feels a little cheap to do it the way they did. Those fans may have thrown the bottles anyway.
Right.
And what he said is, but overall, it's all led by the promotion, unrelated to this specific item. The most beautiful stories and over characters were positioned by the promotion and seated for the fans to get behind, even the organic ones, i.e. the Yes Movement and it not being the plan. It was the plan. Rare Fire starts with a planned spark. Not unheard of, but the greatest stories intended are intended to feel fan-driven. So...
Right. So his point is, look, does it matter if the end game here is New Day gets more heat on them? And I can't really, again, if we weren't in an era with guaranteed money, I would continue arguing against that. But I can't, because it doesn't matter now. Because if the media rights money wasn't guaranteed, my counter argument to what we saw on Monday would be, you're pretending this is more over than it is, and it's going to bite you in the ass. Because it's not going to draw the money you think it's going to draw, because it's not really over as you think it is.
But it doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
Fucking matter.
It doesn't matter anymore. And that's why I think wrestling as a whole, and I'm not, I'm not trying to steal a phrase from another podcast, but that's why I think it used to be better. I don't know how else to put it. From an entertainment standpoint, it just used to be better when it was more organic, and it's just a new way of working people, right? So I hate this, but I can't even really argue against it all that hard. I could say I think it sucks, and I could tell you this is why I don't jive with modern WWE at all. That's one of the primary reasons, because it's just so fake and yuck. I watch this and I'm like, I hate this. I don't want this. Isn't wrestling. What is this shit? But it doesn't matter, and ultimately it ends up working.
Yeah, and sadly, it's probably going to be wrestling pretty soon, and that is a horrible future.
It is wrestling right now. I mean, it is.
Yeah, they're the top company in the world.
So, but here's the thing. I'm not going to come on here, and you're not going to come on here and endorse this shit or tell you that this was one of the greatest heat segments of all time, or, oh, I can't believe the heat that this guy. And look, to be fair, a lot of the people saying that are these people chasing the Elon money, people who don't know shit about wrestling, let's be honest. I'm not trying to gatekeep or be that guy, but a lot of the people who think that was a great heat segment don't know what the fuck a heat segment they don't even know what that means, let alone what a good one is, okay? But a lot of people who really should know better were also saying that, and I'm baffled by it, because I know that these other people know better, and it's like what you saw was a heavily produced, scripted, and heavily manufactured, it was fugazi is what it was. But listen, everyone's praising it today. It's as much the talk of wrestling as last week's segment, which really was great, is. So, I don't know. is it the children that are wrong, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it gets into existential crisis mode here pretty quickly, and I kind of tried to figure that out while I was doing the article as well. So real quickly, I'll just play one of the clips. I think I can do two of them. They're very quick. So Joe, you won't be able to hear them, but you already know about them. You watched it live. You've watched the videos or whatever. For those listening at home, though, I go into more detail.
Rich, very quickly before you play the clips, that Matt Cardona angle. I don't remember, but I think it ended up not being plants. So we should probably say that in case someone digs up.
Okay.
Like, because remember, that conversation was in real time, and that ended up being a story that went. I don't remember for sure, but I think it came out that they claimed that those weren't plants. I guess it's not important, but I do want to note that.
Okay.
Just so, because listen, game changer people could be a little touchy. I don't want to be,
No, come on.
So, glancing around.
Are they?
A little
Okay.
bit.
I didn't know that.
A little bit.
I didn't know that. All right, well, good to know. All right, so here is the one. So this is from WWE's YouTube channel as well. This is WWE's YouTube channel, and this is the isolated clip that I mentioned where you can tell that Woods is starting his promo and stops in the classic "I'm not going to keep talking while you guys are all making noise" thing, but he stops before the crowd starts booing. So again, Joe, you will not be able to hear this, but the listeners at home will be able to. So here's that segment, and then I'll do the live in the building one too, just in case people think that it was just on television or just on the USA feed or whatever. I have the in-arena clip as well, so you know that it was done in the arena. But here is the clip from WWE's YouTube channel. Okay.
We came out here. We came out.
All right, so that was the first one there. Hopefully everybody could hear that. But
I
if
heard
not,
it too.
Oh, you
I
did
heard
hear?
it
Okay,
too.
all right. But if you can't,
The other thing about it is, it's the same sound.
it's
every
always
time
the same.
too.
And this is the thing this is why I don't understand why people don't call this out. And that's why I wondered if they just don't care or they're just putting their head in the sand or whatever's going on, because how is it not obvious? They always sound the same. The boos always sound the same. The cheer always sound the same. And worse than any of that is the thing that I always rant about the most is crowd murmur -3.wave or whatever. Because they do this thing too when a guy is cutting a promo. You hear this on every promo and nobody ever says anything about it. I'm like, am I the only person on earth that hears this? That every time a guy's cutting a promo, it's like crowd murmur bullshit that they play in the background because they don't want silence. They don't like silence.
They don't want silence. They don't want silence. So even though the fans are just sitting there listening to, in some cases, they're listening to the promo like
Right.
they're supposed to be doing, right? In some cases, they're bored and they don't care. But in some cases, they're just listening to what Randy Orton has to say, right? Like you're supposed to do when you go to a wrestling show. But WWE can't have that. So they slapped the murmur fucking
murmur-3.wave or whatever. Now here's the in-arena piped-in booze, so you can tell. And make note of well, you'll hear it. I'll play the whole thing here.
This is the fan video.
It's a
right?
fan video. Yeah, it's a fan video from somebody
so
in the
egregious.
arena. This one is vivid, very vividly obvious. So that one's the most vivid because you can hear that right as the crowd. You can see it from like the wavelengths as well in the audio files I have. Is that right when the crowd starts to die down a little bit? Boom, we punched up a little bit, and now we got even more. You know,
the third wave of boos is the one where it's most obvious.
Yeah.
If people want to go back and listen, or if you put the link for the tweet somewhere, that third wave of boos is so clearly fake that you have to be an imbecile if you think it's real. And that one, I'm glad you did, because it's not as obvious on the TV feed. But that third one on that clip, it's like you hear it cut right back in. Like they started the clip a fraction of a second late, because when it starts again, they're already mid-boo. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And I found an old example too of WCW used to do this, because they got criticized in 1998 by a lot of the same people that now are saying, "Oh, what incredible heat for the New Day." But in 1998, they criticized Goldberg and WCW for them piping in Goldberg chants, and actually linked to a video in that Patreon post, which by the way is available on our $10 tier if you want to go read that at flagshippatreon.com. And there's a great part in that Goldberg clip where Goldberg comes out to massive cheers. He gets big chants of Goldberg, and the problem is Goldberg hangs around in the ring for like 2 minutes, and they didn't want the fans to stop chanting Goldberg. So as the crowd's starting to get tired of chanting Goldberg, they then hit the Goldberg chant noise. And what happens is there's like an audio issue where it either repeats or something like that, or the audio clip cuts off. So you hear like Goldberg, and it's like, well, hold on a minute, what happened there? Why did we hear 2 G's back to back? Because it was like the audio file had turned over or whatever to, okay, that was the end of that, so now it's going to either repeat or something happened to the audio feed, but you can vividly hear 2 G's being said in a row by this crowd, and then they start chanting Goldberg again like they would normally do. You get the same thing here with that New Day thing, where after that third one, it's like mid-boo that it gets ramped up and louder. So, there you go.
It's funny too, because even with the fake boos and then with whatever the crowd was providing, I didn't even think it was that loud to where it was like, oh, we got to storm out of here because they won't. You know what I mean? Like, right. Even from that standpoint,
it came across kind of dorky. Yeah, it came across real dorky.
It was. I thought it was a dog shit fucking segment for all of these reasons. Like, if this were true, genuine, we don't want to hear you talk heat. You didn't see people hanging over the rail. You didn't see people scowling and screaming and pointing and giving the finger and cursing and fucking. No. When you look at the crowd, they're all
smiling.
Booing with a smile.
They're all smiling, yeah.
They're booing with a smile. This ain't real heat. This isn't real heat. But for a lot of modern fans, they don't know real heat. This is what they think wrestling is. Right? Because none of them went back and watched the old tapes on like we talked about last week on the network. They don't know what real heat is. And, they're all just, they're there participant. Now, look, they're having a good time. Good for them. They bought their ticket. Go have a good time however you want. I'm not going to sit here and tell you WWE crowds don't have a good time.
No, of course. I would rather more crowds make noise, and have a good time.
But they're having good time in a way very different than pro wrestling crowds used to have a good time, because
correct.
They are there. They are there to be part of the show. The promotion wants them to be part of the show, and they know the role that they're filling. They know they're supposed to sing along to Seth Rollins' song and to Cody's song. They know how they're supposed to react when each person comes out. They know when to put their finger in the air. They know, who they're supposed to boo with a smile when they start talking, like they used to do with Dom. And I can give you 1,000 examples of this. They are there to be sort of their fans are a character on the show. Collectively, their fans are a character, and the fans know that, and they know that. And that's the atmosphere WWE wants and the atmosphere they've cultivated. I think it makes for a terrible wrestling show, but they don't want to be they aren't a wrestling show. They aren't.
It's a show about wrestling. So
exactly. We'll never find out who said that for the first time. We can't take credit for it, but it's dead on. Monday Night Raw is a show about wrestling. And when you think about that, it's true. Even with the Levesque changes, that's still what it is. This New Day thing was just a scripted scene in a television show. It was not a pro wrestling angle in the traditional sense. It wasn't. And it wasn't great. And there's no way this is not one of the great heat segments in wrestling history. Not a chance.
It is if your wrestling history is the last 5 years, which for many people it is, and for many people that and this is I always hate when people do that. Oh, this is the greatest thing in history. It's like, brother,
you got to know history.
16 years old, man, chill out. You don't know history. Like, don't say that. Just say this is a great. You can just say, but nothing can be that way.
Nothing can, great,
but nothing can be that way anymore. Everything's got to be globalized, and yeah, it has to be. This was the greatest thing ever. This was the greatest thing in history. It just can't. It can't be that was a great segment. It was, no, this is the greatest segment in history.
And I mean, shit, like I said, the one the week before was great. And those fans were showing genuine emotion to that segment. And they did a great job with that because I didn't see one person predict that they were going to turn on Big E. And so from that standpoint, it was a surprise. Big E comes out. You think he's going to save the day and bring everybody back together. Then they decide to turn on him. And I thought all three guys were so great in the segment. They were all great. And I rarely say that about a WWE segment because people rarely are great in the ways I want them to be great in WWE segments because they're doing the WWE style of, the community theater shit. And that's not what that was last week. That came off like a genuine wrestling angle. And the fans bought it. And I will take last week's crowd and last week's angle over this horse shit that we saw on Monday 100 times out of 100. And, but yeah, you wrote the piece behind the paywall, $10 tier if people want to check it out. You could sell your own writing. I don't need to do that. Go ahead.
No, I already did. Yeah, the flagshippatreon.com. $10 tier, write up all about that, but a little bit about the history of crowd sweetening, of course, famous examples like Royal Rumble 1992 and Goldberg or whatever. And I also have another one that we won't talk about here, but on War Games, there's a very obvious boo.mp3 when the new Bloodline came out. And I kind of break that down too of when that happened. Because like the music hits and then it's like 5 or 6 seconds later and then everybody in the crowd, all 17,000 people all decide to boo at the exact same time. And that's not how noise works. That's not how boos work. It's gradual. It's not just everybody makes noise all at the exact same time. That's not exactly how it works. But in WWE's world, that is how it works. So, and again, I also heard that, these guys are getting mega heat. And I'm like, am I nuts? Am I crazy? Am I the one that's wrong here? Am I not getting it? Or does everybody else I don't know. It's just, that's what's more frustrating to me, and not necessarily that WWE does this, because I don't put it past them to do it. What frustrates me is that people just either don't pay attention, don't notice, or don't care. And that bothers me a lot more than WWE really doing this, because I knew they were going to do this. We had this long segment. You go back to during the Thunderdome, you and I had like an hour-long segment wondering, are they going to do this once the crowds come back? And I said, yes, they are. They're going to realize, oh my God, we just figured it out. We don't have to worry about these stupid crowds ever again. We could just hit boo and cheer, and we're good. We're good to go. Now, what they didn't expect was that the crowd was going to, that WWE would get hot again, and the crowd would just go their direction anyway. I was thinking that, instead of the crowd booing and chanting CM Punk and doing this sort of stuff, we'll just mute the crowd and hit boo and cheer or whatever, was what my thought was. Yeah. They're doing both. They're doing boo and cheer, and they have a hot crowd at the same time. So
it helps that it helps them that the crowds are going with it right now.
Exactly.
Because everything is so, So they're hot right now, so their crowds are going with it. And we all know this is cyclical, and when they cool off, the crowds won't be going with it, and it'll be even more obvious than it is now. Right? Because like last night, when they were doing this to enhance it, the crowd was feeding off of that and going with it. Because the people there probably felt like they were part of something organic at that point. It's probably, I'm not suggesting that the 7,000 people or however many people that were there last night were all in on some magician's hoax. I mean, they just heard sound and they're like, they joined in and they were being fans. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's going to be points and there's going to be where it's more obvious when they're doing it with something that's not as over. Right. So I don't know, but all I know is that it sucks. Okay, that's what I do know, and I think it's terrible, and it's why I always feel so disconnected from this company. It's funny you brought up the War Games because, and I guess we should just do War Games next since we're already talking about this company. I watched the All Japan Real World Tag League Final from a packed Korakuen immediately after I watched War Games.
Oh no,
man, was that a fucking mistake? Because that was a great crowd that All Japan had, and maybe it wasn't a mistake necessarily, but it really hammered home the difference in organic crowd reactions of people who are enjoying what they're seeing, and crowds that are playing grab ass, sing along, this is our role in the show, which is what WWE fans are, versus those fans at the All Japan show who were just wrestling fans reacting to what they were seeing in that opener. And it was such a dichotomy, and it was so obvious that I put it in my notes. I'm like, holy shit. It's like I almost forget what real wrestling crowds are supposed to sound like and what they're supposed to feel like when they're really feeling something.
And that was a super
as
hot crowd
opposed
for the record. That Korakuen was hot. It was like, what,
It was
1,700 or so in Korakuen. Good number. They were hot the entire night. That
Legit
crowd
sell out.
That crowd put that show over for me in a lot of ways, because they were in on everything, and they were clearly in on a couple of teams in this tag league as well, which really I think helped the whole show.
There was a legit sellout. They opened it up to standing room, and and they opened up the show with one of the semifinal matches. So they had big stars right off the bat. They had Miyahara and Davey Boy in their semifinal match against Rising Hayato and can't remember his partners. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about it later. And they were just at a fever pitch, and I was like, man, this is what I want. This is how I like wrestling crowds reacting. Not like at War Games in that one moment where, we already reviewed War Games.
Yeah, dear God, do not try. I was wondering what you were doing. I was like, I'm not talking about War Games.
The NXT show. Yeah. But the War Game, unlike the War Game show, where there was that moment in the women's War Games where they did I can't call it a double down because there were 6 people in the match, but you know what I mean. The spot where everybody was down, and the fans were like, "All right, this is where we're supposed to chant. This is awesome." Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Where everybody was down, and there was like this weird, awkward silence for about 3 or 4 seconds that felt like 3 or 4 hours, and then you hear one person in the crowd go, "This is awesome," and then everybody goes, "Oh yeah, we're supposed to be chanting this is awesome," because everybody's on their back. It's like, ugh. And then I watched it NXT, and I watched the All Japan, and it's like, holy shit, this is pro wrestling. So anyway, I gave you a nice pause there for the YouTube clip, and now we move on to.
Thank you. That makes my life a lot easier. That's one of the things that is difficult when we do the YouTube clips. It's like we're just like marble. We just constantly, we're just like bam, 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 bam. It's so hard to find a place to cut. Like, where do I cut? But there you go. We're going to start inserting pauses strategically.
Listen, I'm a forward thinker, Rich Craich. So, you love that shit.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, it just made my job, because I sit there and I agonize over which second to cut, and like, oh my God, it's right between a word, because you stop talking for 0.2 seconds, then I start talking. It's like, fuck, just shut the fuck up. One of us just shut the fuck up for 2 seconds so I can cut here. But you did it right there, so thank you so much.
So I'm like, listen, I'll give a nice closing, good strong closing statement, and then I'm gonna shut the fuck up. And I'm gonna hope Rich doesn't say anything, and we're gonna have a nice clean cut for what I thought was a great segment. And I'm sure you thought it was great too. That you're gonna cut for YouTube. I can read your mind.
You got it. You know what I'm
that was going on YouTube. That 20 minutes or probably 40 minutes. Who knows how long it was?
It was quite a while. But that whole thing's going up because it's important, because nobody else is really talking about it. No one else is talking about it.
And we're gonna get all kinds of hate, and who cares? I won't ever see it. And then we'll go. But someone has to speak the truth about this fucking nonsense. Someone has to do it. And if it has to be us, it'll be us. Anyway, WWE Deadline, not NXT Deadline. Interesting.
Yeah. What Windhorse Fingers? What are we doing here, Joe?
Well, I think what we're doing here. Oh my God! I just pulled up the cage match, and I think I'm gonna.
Don't do it. Oh, I was gonna tell you. Don't. That was the whole segment was gonna be Joe.
Oh man,
don't do it.
Know.
Don't do it. I was gonna tell you. I can't believe you did it. You're fucked.
Anyone who thinks
it's so green. There's so much green on that page. Look away. Go look away. There's so much green.
I already looked, but anyone who thinks that women's Iron Survivor was an 8.49 is out of their fucking minds. That match, it couldn't have been more boring.
That was the most 5 on cage match I've ever seen in my life.
That was the most 2.5 star match. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? All of my notes, it says Julia Ren start dull. Okay, so Julia and I guess Ren Sinclair started the match.
Yes, correct.
So I wrote dull. And then the only other note I have for the entire fucking 30-minute match is I don't know, very boring, period. Those are all my notes for that match. 8.49? That is a 2.5 star match if I've ever seen one. Are you fucking kidding me?
You weren't impressed. The notes that I have is Sol Ruka, pretty good at flippy stuff, and then boring.
Is she?
She is, but she's not at the same time. There's two things going on. Sol Ruca, here's what we have to do with Sol Ruca. And they'll never in a million years do it, but they have to do it. And they should do it. And if I was there, I would advise them to do it. She's got the spectacular down. She knows how to do spectacular stuff. The problem is she doesn't know how to do it in the context of a wrestling match or do it in any organic way or any of that sort of stuff. What you have to do with Sol Ruca is you have to send her to Japan or somewhere. Or Mexico or whatever. She has to leave. And it's never going to happen in a million years, I know. But you need to send her to Marigold or Stardom or whatever the fuck. It'd be Marigold because they're in bed with Rossi right now. So send her to Marigold for a year and just have them teach her how to actually harness what she can do, because she can do spectacular things.
Yeah.
But she just does them in gifts. It's like they're just gifts. They're just a series of gifts that you go, whoa, hold on a minute. Yeah. That's pretty crazy what she did, but nothing is done nothing is done in the context of an actual wrestling match. She needs to get that part down. The problem is she's never going to get that part down because she's good at gifts and she's good at doing the spectacular, and they're just going to go
praised for it.
And she gets praised for it, and they probably love it, and they know it's good, and they're just going to say, yeah, she's good. She's good to go in there, Soul, and do your flippy do cutter thing, and your this flippy do and that flippy do thing, and we'll be good to go. That'll be your gimmick. You're the flippy do girl. And it's like, God damn, if they really said, Soul, for a year, go to Marigold, learn how to work, learn how to do things, you can come back and you can, because she could legitimately be like a top tier star. And you've mentioned that before, that you would trade.
I've said it before.
Yeah, like I see so much potential in her, but I know that all of it's going to go unrealized because this will be the final build. You know what I mean? This will be it. What we see right now is what we will see in 3 years and 4 years and 5 years or whatever, until she blows out both of her knees, and then she doesn't have that anymore, and then she'll have nothing else, and then she'll be gone.
And what does she have?
And then she'll be gone.
She can physically do incredible things, right? But she doesn't do them in a seamless, athletic manner that look like they're part of the fight that we're watching.
Right.
Is the best way to put it. She reminds me of, you go to WrestleMania weekend and there's a scramble and there's 6 people in the scramble and 3 of them can do these amazing physical things, but they don't know how to wrestle yet. And they don't know how to incorporate those things in a way that looks natural and like they're not thinking before they do them. That's what she is. You know, there's every time you go to an indie show, there's somebody like this who might not be quite as athletically gifted, but you're like, wow, that person could do a lot of great things, but they're obviously green and they don't know what they're doing yet. They don't know how to incorporate it and work it into a match so it looks like they're hurting an opponent. She did that springboard flip double clothesline in this match, and it looked terrible. The timing was all off. Her opponents weren't positioned in the right place. She landed on her feet and then had to lunge forward a little just to make contact with the spot I'm talking about. And it's like, when you see a flippy-do guy who has it all put together and knows what they're doing, when they do this stuff, it looks seamless and it looks like it's part of the match and it looks like there's some flow to it and there's snap behind it. That's what she's lacking. And when people talk so highly of her, it's like I just shake my head. I'm like, you don't really understand what you're watching. I mean, this is going to be a show where we really sound like uppity douchebags.
Well,
but, I mean,
if the shoe fits, that's fine.
I mean, it's like, because Meltzer was getting that thrown at him again. I saw someone saying, that you better give it 5.5 stars because she does everything that Will Ospreay does. And it's like, you just don't fucking get it. If you think that she does everything that Will Ospreay does. You watch a Will Ospreay match and it looks like he's killing his fucking opponent with the viciousness behind his offense and everything. And then you watch this and it looks like someone who learned how to do a flip off the top rope, but hasn't learned yet how to make it look like she's physically harming her opponent.
Which was a Will Ospreay thing, which was like 2014 Will Ospreay. Skinny, early Will Ospreay was that guy where you're like, all right, dude, you got to put it all together. And he fucking did. And that's why he's on the run that he's been on in the last, 6-7 years.
Correct. And she's just green. And we want to take these people and pretend that they're great already. And they're not. And, and you can't point to her opponents here because she's in there with Julia and Stephanie Vakir and Ren Sinclair, who's been Maddie Rinkowski's been a good indie worker for years.
Yeah, she's like 30. People don't realize that she's if she's not 30, she's 29. She's a lot older than people think. She's not this, and that's still young. You could still have a lot of career ahead of you, but she's been wrestling for 6-7 years. Yeah, she's been wrestling for 6-7 years already.
Yeah, and has been someone who people have said, she probably needs to get a major league look, and eventually she did. She was an AEW jobber where people might recognize her. Then she was with Corgan's NWA for a while, and she did a lot of creative things to get herself over in terms of social media stuff and those little interview deals she was doing. I don't know if you saw any of those or remember them,
yeah.
but
there's a great one with EC3 where EC3 is not in on the joke at all. And
I can imagine how that came off. Yeah,
it was very awkward, but very good. Like, she gets the gimmick, she's trying to have fun with it. He doesn't quite get the gimmick. Like, he's talking about semen retention, like earnestly, and she's laughing at him about it, but he doesn't know that she's laughing at him about it, type of thing. Unless he's working me too, but I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend to know the full catalog of Zarya, aka Delta. I mean, I might have seen her once or twice when she was in Australia, so I'll leave her out of this. But the point here is Ruka wasn't in there with the equally green NXT talent this time. And it was still all the same problems that you see with her before, where it's like, man, this person's so gifted, but they're a million miles away from being good, let alone great, right? So I didn't intend to start with the main event, and we have to have our conversation. Yeah, I think that to answer your question, I think that now this is a deliberate plan. This is NXT is the name of the TV show, and it's going to cease being kind of a quote unquote brand, and it's WWE. Just like it's WWE SmackDown and WWE Raw, now it's WWE NXT, and that goes, and they're going to brand the shows that way. And honestly, I think that's smart. I think over time, right now, it seems like, because it's like, whoa, they've never done this before. But I think over a long period of time, these shows, especially when they go on the road and try to sell tickets, are going to be more appetizing to people if they're WWE shows as opposed to NXT shows. Instead of telling people, oh, this is the sub brand, this is something lesser. It's the argument I always make with New Japan Strong. Stop calling it New Japan Strong. You're telling people it's not real New Japan when you do that. Just fucking call it New Japan. So this goes line in line with the conversation we've been having about that. So that's my take on it. I don't know what you think about it.
No, I'm with you there, but let's quickly go over the rest of the show because I don't really want to sit here and talk
let's go.
about
I don't want to spend a lot
WWE
of time
Deadline
on
all that much. So
because I got to tell you, overall, this was a nothing show.
Nothing.
I mean, it's just
this is
a very
a nothing.
boring show.
Yeah, this is why when I went to that cage match, I saw so much green. Initially, I didn't see what got green. I just got on the page and I was just like, why is there so much green on this page? This is the most middling, nothing happening, boring ass show that I've ever seen. And yeah, I'm just stunned at how many people thought this was like an exceptional show. But hey, more power to you, I guess. NXT titled number one contendership Iron Survivor Challenge match. Obafemi wins this match with 3 points. Ethan Page, Devon Evans, Nathan Frazier, Wesley also in it. There was supposed to be an Eddie Thorpe appearance, but he got beat up before the match, and Obafemi took his spot. And Oba's a guy that I see similar to Sol Ruka. I see a lot of talent in him. And I see
before you talk about Oba,
yeah.
Did you watch NXT this week?
Eddie got his title match. Yeah.
It was all a scam by the DJ. He faked the attack and then pointed at his temple and said to The Rock's untalented daughter, you see what I did here? I got to skip the Iron Survivor match, and now I'm getting what I want anyway. You're probably wondering why The Rock's untalented daughter doesn't just tell him, well, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, hold on a minute. No.
But I don't know. You can go watch NXT yourself.
Yeah,
and
they
work
didn't.
all that
they
out.
didn't. Actually, he just got a title match. They just gave him.
He just got the title match.
Sorry,
correct.
they gave him a championship opportunity. So
Yes.
he got out of being in a match and skipped the line anyway.
Yeah,
that seems unfair.
The grueling. Yeah, he blew off the grueling match that's hard to win on purpose. Admitted that that's what he did, and then they gave him what he wanted anyway.
Right.
This is a great show, though. I'm told.
Cooking,
with incredible
cooking. Chef Michaels cooking.
Rich, there's people we like and respect who think the show is great and has great logic and is classic pro wrestling. Again, I'm not going to name names. People we like and respect, friends of ours. They think this is good. It's so bad.
Well, I know something. I know you thought this was good. Lola Vice and Jada Parker in NXT.
We didn't talk about Obafemi.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about Obafemi. You're right. We did not talk about Obafemi.
The only thing that needs to be discussed on this fucking show.
I apologize. Go on.
is Obafemi. So the match was built. All right, I'll help you out. So the whole point of this match was to push Obafemi. He was the surprise guy at the end.
Everybody else is just exchanging perfunctory moves for a couple of minutes until Obafemi was the last guy out.
Very poorly, I might add.
Ethan Page, god damn it. He's so mid. Match, yeah, this is the most mid match that ever midded, man. It was
mid. It fucking sucked. It wasn't even mid. Did you see the clip I made of Wesley and Javon Evans?
Oh, with the weakest, just it's
of just. And Wesley has been a major league pro wrestler for almost a decade now. Javon Evans was one of the hottest indie free agents when they signed him. He's a guy who, for people who don't know, he was Jay Malachi. He had made a nice name for himself. He's still only 20 years old. The sky's the limit for this guy. They started this match, and they were dog shit fucking awful. Awful! Go watch it. I got clips if people want them. It was so bad, I kept rewinding and making new clips of how bad Javon Evans and Wesley were. To the point where I'm sending it to people, and people are saying to me, oh, one of them has to be hurt. I'm like, I don't know. That's how bad it was.
Everyone said, Wesley has a back injury. And I'm like, does he? I don't know.
There has to be something.
Right.
Then get him out of there. This was awful, and it didn't get much better. Now, Nathan Frazier came in, and he outclassed everybody. That guy came in the match, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a pro.
Right.
Flying around. He is everything Sol Ruca is not. That's all we need to do. Everything feels natural. He knows what he's doing 3 steps ahead, and he does everything with confidence in what he's doing. He is if people want to understand what we're saying about Sol Ruca, go watch Nathan Frazier.
Right, Nathan Frazier is what happens when you take someone that has all that raw talent, but then they work around the world. They work indies, they work UK, they work all over the place. Yeah. That's what she needs. She needs to work somewhere that's not NXT, the NXT warehouse, Full Sail, the Performance Center or these NXT pay-per-views or whatever. She needs to work around the world, and then you can maybe get something like this. Maybe. In a perfect world, you would get something like this.
Maybe he's just talented in ways more than pure athleticism. How about that?
Yeah. Oh, he gets it. No, he absolutely gets the art of wrestling for sure.
He gets it. And maybe that's it too, where I strongly believe, and I've always said this, when you take someone who has exceptional all-world athleticism and teach them the art of pro wrestling, that's the best combination for a pro wrestler, particularly in modern pro wrestling. Okay? But if you lack one or the other, it doesn't mean you can't be great, but it's harder. And Sol Ruca is lacking the other. Nathan Frazier has a little bit of both. He might not be as athletically gifted as Sol Ruca in terms of the wacky things that he can do. At least he doesn't, he's very athletic, but he doesn't do the crazy wacky things that she does, and maybe he can't do them. But he is such a better pro wrestler and understands, and it just has the natural ability to make it look like he's in a struggle even when he's working 1,000 miles per hour. So he is, to me, when I watch these shows, the best person in NXT. I don't know where you stand on that.
Oh, dear God. Yes. Yeah. And Axiom's probably at worst, third or fourth, or
top 5.
Yeah, he's definitely top 5. Yeah, for sure. That team is legitimately great. That team is legitimately awesome, and I love their matches. So Frazier comes in next, and he's really good. Then Ethan Page comes in, and he's Ethan Page. What do you want me to say? His role was to be scared of Obafemi. Ego.
He was there to be scared of Obafemi, and I get it. And that was his role to get Obafemi over and Obafemi
get beaten up in the penalty box and stuff like that. That's where he's at now. He is he's kind of already the Miz. He's already the Miz on the NXT brand. It's like, oh, here's this chicken shit asshole that kind of sucks, and now the big guy is going to beat him up type thing is he's already he had his little title reign, and I bet that's probably a one and done thing. And now they have the title reign that they can always go back to. Does this sound familiar to The Miz? And he can always say, I won the title. Does it sound familiar to The Miz? And he's just going to be that guy that just, is there. He's kind of always hanging around the upper mid card, but his role is to just get his ass kicked, and you're supposed to laugh at him for getting his ass kicked is essentially what his role is moving forward.
Yeah. So Obafemi's getting the big shove. He wins this. And then he challenged Trick Williams later. They really liked this Obafemi. They worked the media a little last week, where there was this, his contract's up, or are they going to keep him? And they were just setting that up for him to be the surprise.
No, really?
So,
No. I saw people say, I don't know. It looks like he's going to be free. Are you telling me people in the media might not have been playing into WWE's hands with contract negotiations?
WWE just didn't quite answer those questions as honestly as they could because they were putting their story. I mean, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. It's fine.
So anyway, Obafemi's getting the big shove there. That was the story behind this. I had the Iron Survivor matches. I don't like these things.
They're bad. They're not good.
I don't. They're way too long because you got to wait. They have people come in.
They're a minimum of 20 minutes. They're at absolute minimum 20 minutes because that's how you need to get everybody in there. And this one was
25 minutes because they
25. Right. It actually is a 25 minute. I forgot about that.
It's way too long, and the problem is, we all know here's the problem with these. We all know nothing that happens in the first 20 minutes matters at all because it's coming down to what happens in the last minute. That's why they suck, because you're sitting here watching these guys get pins on each other that don't mean anything because everyone goes into that last minute with like one or two, like everyone has the same amount, right? And then like in this one, Femi gets the double pin. He had one. And a couple people had 2 points, and he gets the double pin with 15 seconds left to go up, and then that's the end of the match. The women's match, again, it was won in the final seconds where Julia gets the pin, and then Vakir is desperately trying to like schoolboy her and pin her with a few seconds left. It's just a boring 20 minutes, and then you're waiting around to see who gets the last second pin in the last minute. I don't like these matches. I'm not in. They don't do anything for me. They're never interesting. And there's really no other way to book them than to have someone get a last second pin in the last. What else are you going to do? Rich, you can't have somebody go up 3 pins and then run out. I guess they had one person run out the clock once, right? Was it Austin Theory or somebody else who ran out the clock?
Yeah, I forget.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. I mean, there's strategies you can do, but one of the things that I saw some people point out is that they've never really addressed what's going to happen if there's ties. But they're not going to. They haven't booked a tie yet. They're not planning on doing that anytime soon. But if they do it, they'll just make up that the tie. This is what happens in ties or whatever. But yeah, ultimately you're just sitting there and waiting for
the last minute.
Right. It's something at the last minute. Look down. Who's got the most points? Okay, what's going to happen now is pretty much where it's at, and nothing that happens in between. What they need to do is, and they're never going to do this, is just have one guy blitz through the match, and just have 15 points, and it's like, oh well, fuck. But they're not going to do that because then the last 10 minutes are going to be boring as fuck, and no one's going to care because one guy's just blitzing through everybody. But that would be maybe the way to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think this works. I never think they're any good.
The penalty box is dorky and stuff. I'm good on penalty boxes.
Dorky,
yeah,
very dorky. So Obafemi wins. All right, so NXT Underground, Lola Vice, and they're kind of making this her thing now, I guess. Oh, we should talk about the Lexus King segment, I guess.
Oh my God, this character is so ridiculous. This Lexus King. This one in particular was absolutely absurd. Because they're in Minneapolis. And he gets out of or where is he? Oh, he's on like a rooftop or something like that. Or he's somewhere in Minneapolis. I don't know where the fuck he is. And he goes, you're probably wondering what I'm doing here in Minneapolis, even though I'm not even booked on the show. And it's like, I don't know what you're doing. He's like, it's cold and I'm still out here in Minneapolis. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. And he's like, well, this town holds a place in my heart, a bad place in my heart. And they don't really say it, but if people don't know, this is where his dad died. This is where Brian Pillman overdosed and died, or had a heart attack or whatever it was, and died in Minneapolis. So that was the implication, is that I'm here in Minneapolis where my dad died. And then he proceeds for the next couple of minutes to say, but that's not me, and I'm getting out of my dad's shadow, and I'm not going to be my father's son, and I'm different, and I'm unique, and he's this, and he's that, and I'm this, and I'm that. And this character continues to be guy who wants to get out of his dad's shadow and does so by talking about his dad constantly.
Right.
What are we doing?
Never
what is
stops.
this? Like, I got to not be my father's son. I got to not be Brian Pillman Jr., but let me now proceed to tell you for the next 2 minutes about my dad and how I'm not like my dad. My dad was this guy, but I'm not my dad. I'm a different person. I'm not my dad. I'm not my dad. My dad was my dad, but I'm a different guy. Okay, we heard you. But this isn't helping. This isn't helping.
So is that the point, though? And if so, like...
To what end?
Why?
Yeah, to what end? What are we doing this for? What's the result? What's the end game of this?
Yeah. His whole deal is he's a loser, and he can never win, and he doesn't get on the pay-per-views, and and you know, it's he doesn't want to be his dad, but constantly reminds us of his dad. It almost feels like a rib. Like they kind of know he stinks and they're just embarrassing him. Like, but that's like an old Vince thing that he would do. I don't know. All I know is that sucks.
Well, I know that. I think you might be onto something because this week on NXT television, I don't know if you saw this. I saw a screen grab on our Discord, and I went back and looked at it because I couldn't believe the screen grab that I saw. But somebody just without any context just posted a screen grab of NXT television, and on the screen was former NFL draft bust Ryan Leaf and Lexis King. And it had Ryan Leaf on the left with a little cryon that said Ryan Leaf. And on the right, it said Lexis King with a little cryon that said Lexis King. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I was told that Ryan Leaf is like a commentator for Pac-12 football or something on the CW or whatever. But like, that's too on the nose, right? I'm starting to think your theory is right, that they know this guy sucks. They think he sucks. They want him to, they're just presenting him as guy who sucks. So they bring out noted, like, legendarily draft bust Ryan Leaf to go talk to Lexis King. Like that is way too on the nose.
Story, his gimmick is definitely that he sucks. That's not in dispute. Like the whole point of him is I suck and I don't know how to not suck. But what I'm saying is that on purpose? Like, are we never going to break him out of this? Are we just going to rib this guy? But that's not really their MO anymore. They just get rid of people who they don't think have a future.
Yeah, because it's like, to what end? When is he going to turn the corner and not suck? Because that you're building this up to at one point he's going to not suck. But I don't see that. I mean, I don't see that because then the bell's going to ring and he's going to suck again, and that's the problem.
Because he can't wrestle. He's not talented. The thing about it is, Vince would keep the Red Rooster around just to mock Terry Taylor and laugh and have a laugh and he's a rooster.
God damn, right? Look at a Red Rooster.
But they don't really do that anymore. You know, like if they think someone stinks, they just get rid of them once they don't have any use for them. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'll tell you what else sucks: these NXT Underground matches. Oh my god.
This is not me putting this match over. This is me telling you how much I didn't like the rest of the show. I thought this was legit like my second favorite match on the entire show. That's not good though. For the record, that's not good. Because this was pretty bad.
This was just dreadfully boring and way too long. I mean, here's what I love too. They take the ropes down, right? And then
the geeks. I love the geeks. I know you love the geeks that come in.
Excuse me, sir. Members of the WWE Universe
right, who waited early.
Allegedly.
Who allegedly got to the Armory in Minneapolis hours before the show. Before the show, so that they might have the opportunity to slap the mat while Lola Vice and Jada Parker fight in an NXT Underground, but not stand by the hard cam, though. Only stand by the three other sides of the ring, but not block the hard cam.
Yes. They don't want to block the hard cam. But Vic Joseph, every time. Oh, and here you see the lucky members of the WWE Universe who waited hours outside for their opportunity.
And we're all given black pants, and we're all given black pants with WWE, polo shirts to wear on top.
These are all random members of the WWE Universe, who also all happen to be physically fit people in their early 20s.
They're all really attractive, physically fit people.
Who are conventionally attractive and but these are fans. These aren't trainees. No. These are fans, sir. Real fans. These are real
members
people.
Of the WWE Universe. Yep.
Just members of the WWE. If you go down to your DMV to get your license renewed and you see a cross section of society, they'll look like these people, Rich. They'll all be people between the ages of 20 and 25, physically fit, conventionally attractive, and muscular men, fit women. Like that's what people look like. These are random members of the WWE Universe. Wrestling fans, no less. Gonna leave that one alone. So the match itself, these NXT Underground matches, they're fucking, how boring is, and here's the thing. Here's how you know
they're just normal matches too. Within 10 seconds, they're fighting outside the ring on a table. You know what I mean?
And they're doing wrestling moves. Like they start off grappling, right? Yeah. They do the blood sport. Here's where blood sport gets it right, and NXT Underground gets it wrong. These blood sport matches are 4 minutes, okay, until you get to the main event, and then Josh Barnett goes 8 minutes, right? These things, they go in there, they do their perfunctory grappling, and then they're, like Rich says, they're outside throwing each other through the barricade, going through the table. Then they get in the ring, they're doing fucking snapmares and fucking suplexes and wrestling moves. Why even do this then? Just put on the MMA gloves, have this thing go 3 or 4 minutes, make it feel different. But instead, they end up having wrestling matches. They're locking in like wrestling holds. And I'm just like, this is so boring. While the geeks, the members of the WWE Universe are slapping the fucking mat.
But not the hard cam.
Everything,
but 3 sides of the ring. They're slapping 3 sides of the ring, not blocking the hard cam. Though.
Yeah, everything in NXT has to be this corny, manufactured bullshit. It's so bad. It's so bad. I want to be a guest on these other podcasts where people like this so I can bring up these points and see what these people have to say. I can't wrap my head around people who genuinely like good pro wrestling who think NXT is good. I can't, Rich. I don't understand it. So, as usual, Axiom and Nathan Fraser had the best match on the show.
Yes.
And I thought that Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights looked good as well. Nathan Fraser, of course, wrestled earlier in the night, so he had the ribs all taped up. So the match was built around, the finish was built around Axiom was basically by himself. And it looked like because his boy couldn't help him because he was in his second match, and then Axiom wins it with like the inside cradle or whatever on whichever guy that he pinned, and they ended up retaining the titles. Cage Match thinks it's a 4-star match. I'm gonna pump the brakes on that. It's a nice little 3.
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite,
nice little 3-star match, 3.25-star match, but it was like real competent, legitimate pro wrestling, which nothing else on this show was.
For sure.
So to me, it was the best match on the show.
Well, and actually had a happy accident too. Is that in that opener, Fraser? I think it was Obafemi hit him pretty stiff. Obviously not intentional, but just sort of hit him. And I think Fraser's nose broke because all of a sudden Fraser's just gushing blood out of his nose. So they actually had a double. They wanted Fraser to kind of sell his ribs, but he also had a broken nose too. So it even worked even better. It was like they couldn't have done it better, where he's holding his ribs, and obviously that's going to be the story, is that he's holding his ribs, and that's why he's a little slow to help out Axiom or whatever. But he also has the broken nose too. So it ended up kind of working out pretty well. But yeah, the problem though is they're telling. And in typical WWE fashion, they're telling a story of these guys breaking up. This team exists now to break up. We all know that eventually they're going to break up. And it sucks because they could just be a team. These guys can just be a team for years. Like they can go to the main roster as a tag team. They could just be a pro wrestling tag team because they're very, very good. But the problem is over the last 6 months, it's Axiom by mistake super kicked Nathan Fraser. Nathan Fraser won't tag in Axiom, and there's just like these little things, and we know this is going to go on for a couple more months, and then they're going to break up, and they're going to have a feud, and then Fraser's going to move on to do something, and then Axiom's probably going to do nothing, and they'll release him or whatever. But just keep these guys as a team. There's no I hate that every team has to exist just to break up. These guys can just be a team. There's no reason to break these guys up anytime soon, and I don't really see single star main roster for either guy. Obviously for Axiom, of course not, but Fraser as well. I don't see it either with him. Too small, but as a tag team I could buy it. As a tag team I could buy them as a part of the main roster, and it just sucks that they're so anxious to break them up and try them out as singles. And it's like sometimes you have to know ahead of time, is a team going to be better suited to just stay a tag team? But that's just not how they work. That's not what they do, and it sucks because they're gonna rob us of what could be like 10 years of these guys on the main roster having pretty good tag matches and really elevating the tag team division in ways that it hasn't been elevated in quite some time. But they're not going to do that. They'll both be gone in 5 years probably.
Yeah, no, Fraser's great, but he can't be a star in this company. So then Trick Williams, Ridge Holland for the title. I don't know why this wasn't the main event. I mean, the world title match, and they built it up for a while, but
this sucks. This fucking garbage.
Trick Williams, listen, you're not going to hear much of a bigger proponent of Trick Williams than I have been in terms of his charisma and his look and his promo ability, but he still just isn't it between the bells. And now I believe we're reaching a point where it's concerning. Mm-hmm. He's on the wrong side of 30. They're not going to give him forever. He cannot be a main roster guy right now. There is a level of competency you need between the bells on that main roster. You don't have to go out there and have All Japan 4 Pillars epics on the main roster, but there's a level of competency to the work that has to be, and it's not there with him. He has everything else. And I called that when he was just Carmelo Hayes's second, and before he ever I'm like, well, that's the guy, not Carmelo. And
do you know what they're doing with, do you know what they're doing with Carmelo right now? I just looked this up this week. It must be. I'm sure it's this guy saying, "Hey, let me work this guy." He's doing house shows with. I think he was on SmackDown last week with Cody as well, and he's doing house shows with Cody.
Oh, Cody probably wants to. That's
what I mean. Cody's like, "Hey, I think I can," but
because this guy's dying on the vine.
He's absolutely dying on the vine.
I just don't think Carmelo has big room charisma.
No,
I just don't. And I thought that at the time, and I thought Trick Williams absolutely has big room charisma. But the question is, man, if you can combine those two guys, right? But it's like the clock is ticking on Trick now, and I'm at the point where I'm concerned. Maybe he's just never going to be a bell-to-bell guy at even the minimal level that you need on their main roster. So, and Ridge Holland is he's a nothing. He's just a guy that looks good on TV, and obviously he doesn't have any kind of big time future.
He's like a classic Impact guy. He's like an Impact mid 2010s guy. You know what I mean? Like a dude that they would push to the moon, and you're like, what the fuck are they pushing this guy for? Why is this guy?
You can see why they've given him every chance, but he's also someone who, if they did another round of cuts, no one would be shocked, right?
No,
Rich Holland was on that list.
He's like in his late 30s. I think he's my age or something like that. It's like,
he's 36 and he has no charisma.
Yeah, that's not gonna work, man. Come on.
He has no charisma. He just doesn't have any charisma. And you're right. He's such an Impact Wrestling guy, like that era of the company too. Impact Wrestling, right?
Yeah, Bram versus Ridge Holland. Yes. You could just see the graphic in your mind. You're like, what? No, yes. Nick Aldis. Magnus versus Ridge Holland.
Ridge Holland, yes, with that name and everything. It's just. Right. So yeah, I'm concerned about Trick, and then Obafemi challenges him, and the thing about Obafemi is, everyone talks about this great aura he has and everything. I gotta say, I see that, but you know what I also see a lot of in Obafemi? Wardlow, Sid Vicious, Ahmed Johnson, right? There's something about Obafemi in the ring where he's just a little awkward, and you can kind of get away with that if you have the charisma of a Sid Vicious. But if you have the charisma of a Wardlow, you're fucked. And I don't know that this guy is the lock that people think he is. Is that a hot take?
It's a little spicy. It's definitely spicy because I think because once that bell rings, that's going to be a problem. And when that bell rings on something like Trick is a great example of a guy that before the bell rang on when he was just doing, basic matches, 5-minute matches, 6-minute matches, rehearsed matches, that sort of stuff, down card stuff on NXT, like Obafemi's doing right now. It's like, oh yeah, okay, great. Like this guy, you get it, you see it. And that's the same thing with Wardlow, same thing with Sid, same thing with Ahmed Johnson, all those guys that you mentioned before. When you're doing short little matches and they all have to be as explosive and whatnot, that's good. But once you start getting into what we're seeing now with Trick Williams is, okay, here's 15 minutes to defend your NXT title. What are you going to give us? That's where, I worry about Obafemi because it might be he's really good in 5, 6, 7-minute increments, but what are you going to do now when it's 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you have to kind of play, color between the lines, as some wrestlers like to say. Can he do that? I don't know. I mean, I'd try it. He's got a great look. He's got a great aura. I would try it with him, but he might be similar to what we're seeing with Trick Williams right now, where you try it and see if it works, and if it doesn't, you go, okay, well, now we know that there's a ceiling on this guy right now. But I think you have to try it. I don't know if he's a sure thing. I can't say he's a sure thing, but he's definitely somebody that I need to find out if he's a sure thing or not. I need to put him in that spot and see what he can do.
No, I agree. I'm not saying they shouldn't push him. I'm not convinced like everybody else seems to be. I don't know. To me, there's something missing. And listen, he's less than 2 full years in. I mean, this is like the Braun Breaker conversation all over again. But I thought Braun was showing a little more in NXT than Obafemi has shown. And Braun is rounding into form on the main roster. So it's like, you can't write the guy off when he's had, how many matches has Obafemi had? He's had
Well, it's also one of the issues too. While you're looking that up, it's one of the issues that I have with NXT is that there's not enough veteran guys in NXT for Obafemi to work with. Like Braun Breaker's getting better now.
Matches.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, there you go. But Braun Breaker, what's getting him better is working with Sami Zayn, is working with these veterans, working with older wrestlers. When you're in NXT and they're never, it's just you and
Odyssey Jones and
right. You're right. You're not. How are you going to get better if you're only wrestling those kind of guys? And I think that's always going to be one of the issues with the Performance Center is how do you get any better if you're only facing Eddie Thorpe and Ridge Holland and those kind of guys. I mean, I guess Ridge Holland's a bad example because he's been wrestling forever, but he's just fucking bad. But
but you're not going to learn anything wrestling Ridge Holland.
Like they don't have veterans that are good. On NXT is, I guess, the best way to say it. They have veterans.
They don't.
They have Ethan Page. They have Rich Holland. They have these kind of guys.
Page.
But none of those guys are good. And that I think is ultimately going to be the issue is that if you don't have good wrestlers there for these young guys to wrestle, how are they ever going to get good in NXT? They're going to have to go to the main roster and either sink or swim there. And in the case of Braun Breaker, we're now starting to see it after a year basically of working with good veterans. He's now getting it a little bit more than he did before.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Braun Breaker was, here's a guy who had a ton of charisma when they introduced him, and I think he lost every bit of his charisma when the bell rang, when he was in NXT. That was always my knock on him.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case anymore. You see it rounding into form, where his charisma is coming through while he's wrestling, and that just comes with experience. I think what it comes with is being, again, confidence between the ropes and not being green. Confidence in what you're doing. And that comes through. The lack of confidence also comes through. When he was green and working in NXT, it looked like a green guy who didn't have any confidence in those matches. No matter how much the commentators screamed about how great he was. You saw through it as a viewer. But, so again, a guy like Obafemi, 50 matches, he's been wrestling less than 2 years, but they're putting these people on TV and I have to assess it. You got to look at it. And that's why people are listening to the show, So it's like, yeah, he's got plenty of time to find the things that I feel like he's missing. And I can't even pinpoint what they are, but he doesn't feel like he could absolutely become a star, but I see a scenario where he flames out. I could easily see that. But there's some people who think it's a lock. We'll see. That's WWE Deadline. Do you have anything else on the Deadline, or can we stop talking about?
Let's please, dear God. Real quickly, Saturday night's main event is coming up this Saturday, and we are going to go live. We have an ability to go live. We're both free, so we said, fuck it, let's do it. This Saturday, after Saturday night's main event, we'll be doing Instant Reaction Live, available exclusively on the $10 tier at flagshippatreon.com. So if you're on the $5 tier, you're on the free tier, you're not subscribed, you're going to upgrade to the $10 tier to make sure that you are joining us live immediately following Saturday night's main event. The card is Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre, the finals of the WWE Women's United States title tournament. Liv Morgan versus Io Sky for the WWE Women's World title. Gunther defending the WWE World Heavyweight title against Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And then in a Universal title match, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. And that's going to be Saturday on NBC proper. So we'll be going live immediately following that show on Saturday for Instant Reaction Live. So don't need to do an extensive preview of that, but like I said, we will be there on Saturday night once the show is over. I think it'll be a newsworthy enough show to go live, and we just have the ability. We're both home, so said fuck it, let's do it. Saturday night's main event. So,
are you looking forward to Obsession on the Saturday night's main event? Are you?
Kind of, yeah. Well, I don't have as much okay. You probably
don't
have more
the nostalgia for it.
Nah, I think you have more warm fuzzies for Saturday night's main event than I do. I never really grew up with it. I went back and watched them, but I didn't quite land for me. Rewatching them 20, 30 years later, whatever. But I could definitely see that if you were like a fan of that time, seeing WWF on like NBC on Saturday night would be pretty fucking cool.
It was the only time you saw competitive matches. That's the thing. It was, the syndicated shows were squash matches. And then once a quarter or whatever it was, during one of SNL's off weeks, you'd get Saturday night's main event and you'd get competitive matches. Like, holy shit, there's like stars wrestling each other. So that's why it was a big deal and you would try to stay up. And as a kid, I wasn't privy to the schedule. So I'd stay up every Saturday, hoping it would.
Just in case.
Yes, and then the SNL would come on. The SNL Cold Open would come on, and it would be so deflating. But then you'd get that little surprise, like every 12 weeks or so, where it wasn't the SNL Cold Open.
You guys didn't have you guys didn't have TV Guide or the newspaper, or what are you doing here? Come on.
I'm talking when I was like 8.
Okay, you were just dumb, and you're just like, screw it, I'll watch. Maybe it'll be on.
Yeah, and when you're a little kid, when you're not, really don't know. Not when I was 15. Then I would have fucking figured it out, But it's like, and then you'd get, it's the wrestling, you go fucking crazy. I'd be so mad.
Would you stick with that? Would you stick with the SNL, or would you bounced?
At some point, I would. Like when I got a little older, I would. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like 8-year-old you is not into
No. Like in 1985, I'm not leaving it on because, whatever. It's
the comedy stylings of Dennis Miller
isn't
landing with you as much.
It'd be even before that, it'd be like
right,
Eddie Murphy era at 85 when it started, like Joe Piscopo and Brian Doyle Murray,
Right. 8-year-old you was not into that.
Yeah. So but that so then obviously obsession. How about this? You get into this. Do you care, Rich Craig? We haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
Do you care that they're bringing back the Winged Eagle belt for Saturday nights? The Winged Eagle belt. Now, I don't care because I don't give a fuck about title belts. But do you care?
No, I don't. And also, what's weird is they're trying to brand this as like Saturday Night's Main Event and the belt that was synonymous with Saturday Night's Main Event. It really wasn't. Like there was like 15 Saturday Night's Main Events that didn't have that belt. You know what I mean? Like that they had the older WWF title. The Winged Eagle belt was like 88, right? Like 88, 89, somewhere around there. So it's like way later, but they're just trying to pretend that like the iconic belt that we all remember from Saturday Night's Main Event is the Winged Eagle belt. And it's like, that's a great belt. I do like that belt a lot, but yeah, let's like chill out a little bit on it being like the iconic belt that we all remember from Saturday Night's Main Event. It's like, well, not my I don't know what Saturday Night's Main Event you were watching, but it basically, I think it only appeared on like the last maybe couple of 3-4 Saturday Night's Main Events, like very few of them. So no, I do not care. I like that belt, but I do not care. I'm not going to mark out at the Saturday Night's Main or at the Winged Eagle belt appearing on Saturday Night's Main Event.
I only have 2 belts I want to come back. The IWGP belt, I want that one back. And I want the AEW women's title that was 7% smaller back, just to annoy people. Those are the only 2 belts that I want back. That's it. I don't care about any other belt.
I think it's fair.
Definitely not the Winged Eagle belt. I couldn't fucking care less what belt that fucking company will try. No, So, anyway, that was the return of Do You Care?
Yeah, there you go. Brief segment,
Very
but
brief.
but always memorable.
One day I will bring back Barry the Pundit because you have to tug your collar at that one because that's a fun game because I don't tell you who the take is from. I just give you the take.
I have to decide if I want to bury
and then you have to
them or
decide whether you want to bury the take, bury the pundit, and then I tell you who it is. So you're over there collar tugging, and because you don't know, oh shit, who am I going to be burying here? Is it someone I'm going to get a nasty DM from? Is it someone that I have to see at a live show? Is it, So one day I will compile a new Bury the Pundit for Rich Craig, a very popular segment. All right, what do we got next here? What's next on our list? You want to do some AEW quick hitters and then move on to the Japanese stuff and then save MLW for last?
Yeah, let's please save MLW for last for sure.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we did last week, but Rampage and Collision didn't do well. Dynamite, after we talked about how, and obviously we're doing this Wednesday night, so we don't know how Dynamite's going to do this week. But we had the long discussion about AEW and Dynamite last week, and my theory was AEW has reached a point where when people break the habit of watching, they might not be coming back because it's not compelling enough for them right now, right? And that kind of held true for Rampage and Collision this week, which did not bounce all the way back, particularly in the demo. So there might be something to my theory that I discussed last week, and we'll see with this week's Dynamite number. Raw also did not have a good number this week, and most people are attributing that to the Cowboys-Bengals game, which was a game between teams that are on the fringes of the playoff race, to be kind, but they did the Simpsons gimmick on Disney Plus in conjunction with it, which Cowboy games are going to do big ratings no matter how bad the team is. And then you toss in the Simpsons thing, which seemed to be a hit. So maybe that was the reason that Raw was down big, but we'll keep an eye on it. But there's, been some pretty low ratings around wrestling the last couple weeks. We had the All In Texas on sale event this week. They're doing a Starcast in conjunction with it. I don't want to make a big thing of this, but if I were Tony Khan, I would never do business with Conrad Thompson. I mean, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm built different. I'm not going to do business with a guy who platforms Eric Bischoff to shit on my company nonstop, which I believe does tangible damage.
Right, which poisons the well in a pretty significant way.
Poisons the well. He's influential no matter how clueless he is, and he's clearly influential. And then Conrad Thompson always does the who, me routine when he gets called out on it. I would never do business with that guy. I would never allow Conrad Thompson to piggyback his business ventures with me. And I understand Tony's standpoint. Well, Starcast visitors will buy tickets to my wrestling show. I wouldn't do business with Conrad Thompson if my next meal depended on it. That's where I would stand with Conrad Thompson. Okay. If it means I sell 1,000 less tickets, 5,000 less tickets to my wrestling show, I would not do business with Conrad Thompson because he does business with Eric Bischoff and platforms Eric Bischoff. And I think Tony Khan looks weak, and I think he looks bad.
It looks desperate.
And
it comes off very desperate.
And I won't go as far as pathetic, but it's a bad look for Tony Khan to do business with that guy. That's I'm not going to, again, I want to make a big segment out of it. That's how I feel about it. I would not do business with that guy. And what I'm sure, it's like, and he's got Conrad Thompson out there holding the mic and hosting this event and everything. And I'm sure he hustled off to do another podcast with Eric Bischoff where Eric tears down AEW. And how Tony just turns the other cheek on that. Maybe I'm built different, and maybe Tony Khan's a better man than me. But I would not do business with Conrad Thompson. Not a fucking chance.
Well, and like we've always talked about too, the Bischoff thing is multitudes worse because it's very clearly designed to, I'm going to bash things about AEW because that's what my audience wants me to do. Like we're not saying that like legit criticism has no place or like legit criticism isn't good or like, obviously we're not telling you that. The problem is that Eric Bischoff, who Conrad Thompson platforms, is very clearly designing content around tearing down AEW and tearing down specifically Tony Khan in a lot of ways too, because a lot of the topics are bad-mouthing and bashing Tony Khan and how he is as a leader and how he is as a businessman and all that sort of stuff.
Of course, and the term gets thrown around when it shouldn't, but Eric Bischoff is legitimately a grifter. He's a con man and a grifter. And, and Conrad's responsible for him, in my view. So I can't believe Tony does business with that guy. So, but whatever. That's Tony's going to do what Tony wants to do. That's fine. And then there's the Rey Fenix thing, which, Rey Fenix I talked about a little bit on Flagship Plus. I mean, if you're going to say you've been treated in an inhumane manner, all right, you've got my attention, but you better deliver the goods now, because that's a strong word to use, inhumane. So I said what I had to say about that on Flagship Plus. I'll give you a chance to speak in a second. But the new development is he very quietly deleted everything he had to say regarding that situation. I think that's wise, but the damage might already be done.
Yeah. Luckily, tweets, once you delete tweets, they're gone forever, and we're not allowed to reference them ever again.
I mean, not even just in terms of maybe annoying Tony and annoying AEW with causing another, that was the big story for a full day, were his comments and his tweets. But even from the standpoint of little advice to any wrestler listening, I've had this conversation with wrestlers. If you're in a dispute with a promotion, it's best to just keep your head down, lay low, and not say a word, because everyone's listening. Not just the people you're in a dispute with. Everyone's listening. And if you're going to go out there and throw people under the bus and talk shit about your former or current employer, your future employers are listening. And whether you like it or not, no matter how justified you might think you feel, right, those future employers are taking note. And WWE most certainly takes note of this kind of thing. Because you notice how tight-lipped their people are, especially people that they've just hired. Not a peep. You hear a peep out of these ID people before they signed? Do you hear a peep out of these ID people now? It's just that they run the tight ship in that way. And if you're someone who's, loose with the lips and talking shit about your current employer, Rich, I mean, forget wrestling. What's the last thing you should ever do in a job interview? Shit talk the place that you currently work?
Right. Because now I'm interviewing you, and when you leave, you're going to shit talk me on your next interview that you do after you leave this place. Yeah.
I've interviewed literally thousands of people. It's definitely into four figures for everything from minimum wage dishwashers to six-figure salaried employees. I have interviewed thousands of people in my life. And as soon as someone starts bad-mouthing the place they currently work or the last place they worked, I'm not even listening to them anymore. That's a person with a bad attitude. People are on their best behavior in a job interview. So if you already have questionable behavior in the interview, what are you going to be like in 6 months when we stop being polite with each other? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the same theory. Phoenix and Pentagon, he has just kept his nose down.
Exactly. Yep.
Said all the right things. He gave that little speech at the AAA show where he didn't say anything inflammatory. Whether he's feeling bad feelings or not, you'd never know it. Now his contract's up. He's free to do what he wants. And I'm sure he's been telling his brother, shut up. What are you doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you might not be happy. You got injury time added. You might have some gripe with a doctor that maybe we're going to find out about later. Who knows what's going on with all this? But how does it serve your needs to do this?
It doesn't.
The answer is it doesn't.
It doesn't. And there's also a leverage factor, too, that a lot of people have to Phoenix and Pentagon are valuable to WWE right now as Phoenix and Pentagon, the wrestlers, but they're also valuable to WWE right now as taking guys away from AEW, taking guys away from Tony Khan, right? That the WWE's MO is we want these guys, but we also want to take these guys away from AEW. So ruining all your leverage by basically burning that bridge and making it obvious that you're never going to go back to AEW, and that makes you less appealing to WWE because they want you for two reasons. They want you because you're leaving that company and because you're coming to our company. But by then burning that bridge and basically ruining all of your leverage, it makes WWE less, and we've already kind of, there's been examples of that in the past too, where you've advised wrestlers, I've talked to wrestlers too, and people will always say, like, don't just put your head down, and if you have a deal signed or you're about to get a deal, good, great, but don't tell anybody, don't say anything, because at the first inkling of you being public about it and maybe losing any little bit of leverage, WWE might go back to the negotiating table and say, actually, hey, here's the new terms of our deal now that we know that you're leaving that other company and that you've burned that bridge or whatever that may be. You just keep your head down, let that time run out, and sign with the new company when you have the ability to do that. And that works both ways too. That worked with guys that were leaving WWE and going to AEW too. Who were the best at it? It was guys like Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose. He put his head down. He did whatever dumb shit they wanted him to do, and he did the 17 Shield reunions and all that sort of shit. Didn't badmouth anybody, didn't bitch, didn't moan, didn't complain, didn't cry about it. Did everything he wanted to do, and the second his contract was done, he went, okay, great, thank you. I'm not signing your new contract, and I'm leaving, and bye. I'm out of here. And that is the way to do it. That is the way, because you continue to maintain all of the leverage that you're going to have. Like you said, what's the means to the end? There is no means. There is no positive means to going out here and airing dirty laundry yet. Now, if you want to do that after you've signed, pen to paper, you can. I don't think that's a good idea in any way, but if you want to do that, fine. But you don't have a deal yet, brother. You're not signed yet. So maybe don't, maybe keep quiet a little bit for now and get that WWE contract and put pen to paper. And then maybe if you want to come out and say some things, you can say some things. But, right now he does put himself in a very a vulnerable position here by doing this. And there's no benefit. Like you said, there's absolutely zero benefit to going out here and saying this sort of shit.
The first tweet was vague enough to where some people were like, maybe this isn't about AEW, right? And my point at the time was, if that's the case, he should clarify, because people are assuming it's about AEW. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, he might not want to be taken. But that's later. He all but confirmed that later on. I mean, Lucha, Cubs fan, wrote about that in a good story he put up on this on Lucha Blog, where it's like, this Dr. Chris Featherstone, who I'm not familiar with, who I think is with, who was he?
Sports Kita, I believe he's Sports Kita. Yeah.
he had, claimed it was, about AEW and claims he talked to an AEW source about it. And then Phoenix basically confirmed it by co-signing Featherstone's story, saying it's the most accurate version of events or something. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the gist of it. And then Phoenix then directly followed up and said he can't talk about it now because he's under contract. And then he kept tweeting, but then today, Wednesday, all the tweets were taken down. So what we know, you're right. So we know now he was in fact talking about AEW. I think Cubs thought that maybe this was a strategy to see if AEW would let him go early. I mean, that's obviously a bad strategy. I talked to one wrestler today who, again, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have my phone near me, but who basically said he probably thought it was basically the gist of it was this wrestler he probably thought it was a strategy to where Tony might let him go, but that's absolutely the wrong tack to take. I mean,
of course.
Obviously,
well, it makes you look even worse. If you're Tony Khan or AEW, it makes you look worse if the guy goes, I was treated inhumanely. These guys do this. And then he goes, all right, yeah, we'll release you from your contract. Like that, oh, don't say anything more. We'll release you from your contract. Like that. I understand in someone's head why that might seem like a good idea, but that's not a very good idea because the company would be very dumb to release you at that point and make it obvious that they're reacting to what you were saying and trying to hide what you're saying by releasing you and giving you what you want. The smart strategy for AEW and Tony Khan is to say, all right, well, you could sit at home for another year, or whatever. Cool. Well, you sit at home for another year and wallow in your misery or whatever. That's what we're going to do now. But it's not a good strategy. If I get how in a wrestler's head you might think that's a good strategy. Oh, I'm going to go on and air their dirty laundry. I'm going to light them on fire, and then they're going to say, "Oh shit, we don't want this guy to keep airing our dirty laundry. We'll release him. Yeah. We'll let him go. We'll keep him quiet." But for that exact same reason, that's why the company wouldn't do that. Anybody with any PR experience would say, "No, you don't." Then react by giving that person what they want because you're just adding truth to what they said.
Well, look at what Cubs said here. I'll quote Cubs. I believe Phoenix honestly thinks there's merit to what he's saying, and he feels strongly about it. I also feel the timing of this is a planned campaign to rally support and force AEW to let him out of his contract early. I expect he'll keep hinting at things until they offer him a release. People close to him will also talk off the record to friendly sources to advance the cause, end quote. He wrote this before Phoenix deleted everything. Okay, so that's important, right? Because now obviously Phoenix has taken a different strategy here. But as you can see, Cubs had the same idea that wrestler I talked to had, where he thinks it's a strategy.
Oh, of course.
But then Cubs went on to say that, quote, the campaign has been very effective in getting people interested in what Phoenix has to say and what he might say next, but I'm not sure it'll effectively reach Phoenix's goal of escaping the AEW deal, end quote. And he's dead on about that. It's not going to help you get out of the deal. It's honestly, in my view, going to make your situation worse. And it's also going to make prospective employers, WWE, think twice about your character. And it's a shame because even if he feels like he's right in terms of the dispute and that he's not being treated fairly, he's the one that ends up looking bad here by airing all this and trying to use it as, so it's just a mess. And, he shouldn't have, obviously he shouldn't have tweeted anything at all. He should just delete the fucking app and throw it into the ocean, like you say, before you go out there and do that. And the other good point that Cubs made was you can only hint at the story so much before people are going to get tired of that and want to hear it, but you can't say anything while you're under contract anyway. So what are you really accomplishing? Like, you can't give people the story because you're not allowed. So what are you just going to keep making vague tweets into perpetuity? And at that point, you're just going to be stuck there until the contract runs out. And then you look like a complainer and, everything else. So I don't know. I just think Phoenix is misplaying this all the way. He's just, this is just bad and not the route to go.
Right. And now he's messing with Pentagon's money as well and his Pentagon's contracts as well. And yeah, at one point, because Pentagon seems like isn't he pretty much good to go soon? I forget exactly, when his whole stuff is, but I think he's just about ready. I mean, that's why he did that kind of farewell thing. So I am curious if they just bring him in now and say, I will wait on Phoenix when he's ready or whatever, or, fuck, who knows what happens next with with Phoenix. But yeah, Penna's he's doing it the right way, which is kind of weird because there was times where back in Lucha Underground and AAA and stuff where he would. He was the opposite of this. He was very public about trying to get out of contracts and get out of deals and stuff like that. But obviously he's seen that the better tact is to just be quiet and let time do its thing.
Yeah, I feel like if WWE is still interested in these guys, they can bring in Pentagon first and then do a story and then make it a story and bring not his grievance with AEW. You know what I mean? Like make it a story that someone's coming later and everyone's going to know who it is. You know what I mean? Like you could do something in that sort of direction and then roll him in a few months later when you can. But there were some stories today that were suggested that WWE was taken off guard by some of the comments that Phoenix made. And that's just the wrong kind of attention you want to get from them.
No. Yeah.
So we keep an eye on that. Was there anything else AEW related, or we did a lot of AEW last week?
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, let's go Japan. Let's give New Japan and All Japan their moment in the sun there. We'll finish out with MLW on the show. So I'm going to start with All Japan, if that's okay with you. I'd rather start out with the All Japan Real World Tag League, World's Strongest Determination League, whatever you want to call it. December 8th, the Real World Tag League Finals. You talked about it earlier in the show. A sold-out Korakuen Hall, hot crowd, and I thought this was a great show, top to bottom. I liked basically everything on the show for some reason. There was some things that didn't quite, land with me all the way, but I think every single match on the show had something that I enjoyed and something to sink my teeth into. So I thought this was a phenomenal All Japan Real World Tag League final. And I didn't keep up with the tournament all that much. I don't know where you are with like the entire tournament, but I
watched some of it.
Okay. I'm glad. Yeah. Was the tournament in total pretty solid or was it kind of...
It was a tag league.
Yeah.
It was a tag
league. And that's kind of why I decided, there was a couple times where I had time to watch it and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to check in on the finals. Like I'm going to get the semifinals and the finals all in one night. That's enough for me. I don't need to be watching, random ass, tag league tour shows. I don't need to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I checked in on it as much as I checked in on the World Tag League and I like to watch the first night of these tournaments and then I get a feel for, okay, who do I want to check out as it moves along? Because obviously I'm not going to watch every single match and be locked in. And then that's how I approach it, and then obviously I watch the final night as well in full. And yeah, this was a sold out Korakuen. They opened it up for some standing room only and it was a hot crowd too. And, they opened it up with Davey Boy and Kento Miyahara versus Yuma Anzai and Rising Hayato. And this was, they opened it up with the two semifinal matches because then obviously the final is going to close things. And, the crowd was just hot right off the bat, with that. You got the Triple Crown champ out there. You got him teaming with Kento, who always. So that was, to me, the right match to open things up with. I love that Rising Hayato comes out to the I think it's the Sid Vicious version of My Way. I don't think it's technically a Sex Pistols version. I think it's just a Sid Vicious solo deal. You might want to double check that. But the version of My Way that they play in Goodfellas at the end.
Yes.
When Henry Hill is ordering his egg noodle, he gets egg noodles and ketchup. He's just a regular. He's just a schnook. Now I get to live like a regular schnook. And then and then they play I believe that's Sid Vicious and not technically the Sex Pistols.
I think you are right. Yeah, Sid Vicious, My Way. It is a solo Sid Vicious song.
Yeah, it's a great rendition. I mean, a song like that. Frank Sinatra,
right.
Elvis Presley, right?
Yeah, some of the great singers of all time, and then Sid Vicious throws his hat in there with a completely different version in a completely different way, and it rocks too.
And it works. Paul Anka wrote that song for Frank Sinatra, like it was some kind of Italian song, and Paul Anka wrote English lyrics for it. So you got like Paul Anka, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, and Sid Vicious, right? But But his version really, it does work and it really is cool. And there's like a billion other versions too, I think. But those are the ones you think of. I think obviously Sinatra, Sex Pistols, and Elvis Presley, I think are the three big versions of that. But it works so good. It gives Rising Hayato a different kind of edge when he comes out to that song. And that's like the magic of entrance music in wrestling, where it could be a nothing. It could mean nothing, like it does 90% of the time. It could be all wrong for you and hurt, which is very rare. But that other like 9% of the time, it just totally enhances your act when you've got the right entrance music. And when he sits there looking like, a disaffected, unaffected Gen Zer playing with his hair, sitting Indian style in the ring, and that song is playing, it adds to his aura. Am I crazy? Or I feel like...
No, it works. No, it's a great song. It definitely, it's like a unique song too, because you hear it and you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, what song is he coming out to?
Yeah.
And yeah, it works for his character. It works for his persona, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely does. And, I thought it was hot action with real crowd investment. And listen, there's been some mixed reviews on Davey Boy's title reign here so far. We gave a mixed review on his title win. I didn't think he wrestled particularly well. I didn't think the match was terrible, but I also didn't think it was anything special. I thought he was a little sloppy at points in that match. But as this tour has rolled on, and as we saw in this building, he's over. They like him. And
he's got great music too. He's got like 1984, like all
Billy
Japan
Robinson.
music.
Yeah.
Yes. What? It comes out. It's like this
exactly
song from 35 years ago, but it rules. Yeah, it's perfect. 35, 45 years ago. Not even 35. I'm old. I said 35. No, fuck that. 45 years ago.
It comes out to that classic 80s Japanese television wrestling type theme.
Yeah.
And then you got regrets. I had a few. And you have like
right. The juxtaposition is quite incredible. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I haven't been digging wrestling lately, but this show got me off to I was in a good mood right off the bat when I put the show on.
And then Kento, and then fucking Kento Miyahara is going to come out. And like I said, one of the things that I want to scratch off my list of things to do is go to a sold out Korakuen Hall when Kento Miyahara makes his entrance. Like that is something I need to do more so than the Tokyo Dome, more so than any of that stuff. I need to be in the building when Kento Miyahara comes out in Korakuen Hall. I have to. Sometime in my life, I have to fucking do that.
Yeah. And, and Davey Boy, I mean, he's over as champion. And the thing about it is like, he's doing this whole rah, I'm an All Japan guy routine. He does the chant, and the point, and they chant, he does that like 3 times a show. He did it at the end of the show. After this match. And I feel like that's such a good setup for his heel turn. Right? He's turning heel on Miyahara, right? I mean, that's ultimately what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's where we're going. And him being like this, I love All Japan, I'm this rah All Japan guy, and then he turns heel on Kento because Kento's really the heart and soul of All Japan, and I if that's the way they're going, I think that's a smart way to go, and I think we haven't had him have a title defense yet, and he's going to defend against obviously Jun Saito. June, right?
June, yeah.
Jun Saito. Yeah, and they did the whole handshake deal, and he did the thing, and I know there's some thought that maybe Jun Saito can win that. I wouldn't do that. I'd have Davey Boy retain.
Not yet.
I think the obvious program here is Davey Boy and Kento. I really do. I think that's the whole point of all of this, and I think that's why Davey Boy's being so over the top and being the company guy. I think this is all a setup for that. But anyway, they win the match, and I thought it was a really strong 3.5 star. The energy of the match is what I liked. So,
and you get it. What's cool about the match too is you're building up to pretty soon a rising both tag teams. I think both of these guys that were in the semifinal match, both these teams are going to be fighting each other at some point pretty soon in 2025. Davey Boy Smith is going to turn on Kento in my mind, and something's going to happen with Rising Hayato and Yuma Anzai because Hayato, kind of kicks Anzai by mistake, and that's what leads to Kento Miyahara putting him in the straitjacket German and pinning him. So yeah, while Anzai took the pinfall, what you can see there is like, oh, okay, like he only lost because Hayato, they had a little bit of a miscommunication or whatever. So at some point, that team is going to blow up too. So. But that all works. That these aren't permanent tag teams. Like, the flip side of the Axiom and Nathan Frazier thing where I'm talking about like, oh, fuck, I don't want to break these guys up is the opposite here because these are just thrown together teams. Like, these guys are not long-term.
A lot of stable mates and things like that.
But
these some of them teams, are regular teams. But.
These teams exist. These two in particular exist probably to be broken up at some point and feud with each other.
Yeah. I don't. If they're going to elevate Rising Hayato, I mean, they are the All Asia champs, and Rising Hayato, I guess technically is still a junior. So, and I think obviously Yuma Anzai is slotted way higher than him. But my point is, if you wanted to elevate Rising Hayato and go with him, a feud with Yuma Anzai will get that done.
Right.
So, I don't know. But anyway, the All Asia champs were knocked out in the first semifinal. And then we had the Saitos versus Renayabe and Ryuki Honda. Obviously, these are stable mates. They are in the stable with Anzai and Hayato, the whatever it's called, Elpida or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but it's some dumb name that I'm not going to really remember.
But both of the teams got knocked out as the Saitos, the All Japan Tag Team Champions.
Speaking of great music, the best music in the company.
Yeah.
By far.
Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors is so good.
And I guess the answer to why sometimes they mute it and sometimes they don't is it depends which network it airs on. With the rights. So that's the answer to that.
Yeah, because I was wondering. I was like, did I get lucky here? Because they didn't mute it. Like all of a sudden, it started playing for a little bit, and sometimes it'll start you'll hear the first couple of chords, and then the little thing will come on the bottom of the screen that's like, oh, sorry, we have to mute it or whatever. Not here. It was just like, bam, let's play it the whole time. Like, let's fucking go, let's go. But
yeah.
So
they win this. My only takeaway from the semi was, I'm just gonna beat a dead horse. Renayabe ain't it, and he ain't ever gonna be it.
Oh no, he's so not it, Joe. He is the most un-it there's ever been. He just that look, that doofy look on his face. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing here? Especially when you're in here, particularly in these first two matches, you have Davey Boy Smith Jr., who's a lifer. You know what I mean? And he gets it. He's a wrestler. Did he reach the highs that his father did? No, but did he carve out a very good career for himself over 2 decades? Absolutely. Kenta Miyahara, Jesus Christ, one of the greats of all time. Rising Hayato, a guy who is, for lack of a better term, rising and clearly, and then Yuma Anzai, who is already one of the top stars in All Japan Pro Wrestling at a super young age, and then the fucking Saitos, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in the final match. And even Ryuki Honda. These are all guys that are like, oh yeah, these guys all have their own little looks and their own little feels, and they'll get it. And then Renayabe comes out, and it's like, dude, let's go. Like a little bit of energy, a little bit of oomph. Let's go. Like, come on, man. Let's do it. Let's be about this thing. Like, do you want to be a pro wrestler? Do you want to be a pro wrestler? You were out on him a couple months ago, and like he is, yeah. I'm as most out as I could possibly be on a guy. It's just like he doesn't have it. He just does not have it. And there'll be something we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. And I wanted to have a segment about the Saito brothers and how you shouldn't give up on people early on in their careers. But I don't see a path forward for Renayabe at all without a dramatic change or some sort of snap into it from him. But I don't see it. I just don't.
It ain't coming. He don't have it in him. He don't have it in him. There's no fire in the belly with him. But so in the final, we'll just talk about the final, and then we'll talk about the rest of the show after the final. So the Saitos win. They beat Davey Boy and Kento Miyahara. Davey Boy was not in position to save Kento in the end. Kento could not get the straight jacket German off throughout. The closing stretch was phenomenal.
Oh, so
match.
good.
I watched it unspoiled.
With a red hot Corrigan. Yeah, I watched it unspoiled.
Red hot Corrigan. I watched Unspoiled, and I was popping off my couch, when Rei Saito came in there and was just slapping the shit out of Kento to break up that one straight jacket German attempt, and he just slapped the taste out of his mouth and rolled back out to hold back Davey Boy, and then June finishes him off. And I saw some discussion, why didn't they have June pin Davey Boy? It would have made more sense for the title match, right? I get that, I really do. But at the same time, Davey Boy just won the title. I don't think he hadn't had a title defense yet, right?
I don't think he's had a title defense. I think that's an important distinction as well. If the guy had 3 or 4 title defenses under his belt, then yeah, you might want to pin him.
Here.
But you can't.
You
can't have the first time that you see this guy get pinned. Let me double check just to make sure. No, he has not had a title defense. Yeah, he jumps right into this tag league.
Yeah. So I have a problem with it. And it also, if you're going to do a split, Davey Boy has a gripe with Kento now, right? Because he cost them the tag league is the angle they can go with that. So, yeah. So I and then they did the post-match thing with June getting the title shot and all that. So, Yeah, really good match. It wasn't a match of the year contender or anything like that. But, borderline notebook for sure. I think I'd go about 4 flat on the final.
Yeah, I was 4 flat for sure. I liked it a lot better than the New Japan World Tag League final, which we'll talk about here in a bit.
Oh my God, it blew away the New Japan World Tag League final.
Right. It's just in terms of just like old school work and big guys versus and Kento's just Kento. And what happened though is this crowd was also on board with the Saitos too. Like they're supposed to be they're supposed to be the kind of sort of the de facto heels, but on this night they were just like, nah, fuck it. We love these guys. We want them to win. We're rooting for them. We've seen their entire journey, and we want to see them complete their journey here by winning the Real World Tag League or whatever. So yeah, even as they're breaking up, and beating up Kento Miyahara, the crowd's still on board with it entirely. And like you said, the last couple of minutes of this match are just well worth your time. This whole match is well worth your time. You should definitely check this one out. Like I said, I was 4 flat with you too. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the Saitos is the importance of a couple of things in wrestling. And it's very hard to strike this balance perfectly. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it takes guts and it takes the wrestlers getting on board. It takes a booker getting on board. And again, it doesn't always work, but you have to do this, is not always giving up on people. Because it would have been very easy to give up on the Saito brothers a couple years ago when they tried them out as the, here are the real workers, these clean-cut real workers that, they have, amateur wrestling backgrounds, and now they're here in All Japan Pro Wrestling and stuff, and it didn't work. It didn't land. And we were right here on the show saying, these guys aren't working. These guys aren't it. These guys stink. This is no good. This is going nowhere. And it takes a lot of guts to not give up on guys. And it takes a lot of guts to reinvent people as well, because a lot of wrestlers and a lot of wrestling companies will just say, well, this is what we want from these guys, so let's just keep trying, and maybe eventually it'll turn, and maybe eventually they'll get over. In this case, All Japan said, it's not working with this, but we don't want to give up on these guys just yet, so what can we do? And they transitioned these guys into scummers. They got fat, they got beards, they wear t-shirts, they go out there, they beat the hell out of each other, they do power moves, they do that sort of stuff, and it didn't work right away, but it worked pretty quickly. And now we see it fully realized, a year and a half, 2 years later, that now they're the Real World Tag Champs, they're the Tokyo Sports Tag Team of the Year. Like that all, I would never have thought that was going to be the case 3 years ago when they debuted or whatever it may be. I might have my timelines off of when they debuted or whatever, but when they debuted, we were on the show saying like, I don't know, man, these guys have nothing. There's just nothing there. And I credit them as a team. I credit those guys as wrestlers. And I credit All Japan Pro Wrestling for realizing it wasn't working the way that they initially wanted it to work and pivoting and trying it a different way. And now the end result is these guys main evented a sold-out Korakuen Hall, won the Real World Tag League, and then a couple days later won the Tokyo Sports Tag Team of the Year. I mean, that is a testament to what great pro wrestling is, and great pro wrestling booking, and great pro wrestling planning and promotion is seeing something that might not be working and reworking it and pivoting and trying out different things and landing on something that lands. Because it doesn't always land, but sometimes you got to fucking try it. You know what I mean? You got to try to pivot. You have to try something new with people, and Saitos are just a great example of it working and clicking.
Yeah, and now they're over as stars in this company, and they have people believing that Jun Saito could win the Triple Crown from Davey Boy Smith Jr. And I don't know, maybe he will. Not how I would play it, and I don't think they'll do it, but it wouldn't stun me. You look at the house that this show drew, and it's built around the Saitos being in the mix to win this thing. So, just super fun conclusion to the tournament. And, there was a match here that really stunned me, and that was the Gaora TV title match. I thought Yuka Miyamoto, and he beat Ciego Tachibana for the title. I thought this just totally over-delivered on my expectations and was way better than it had any right to be. I thought it was the second best match on the show. I thought it was, same neighborhood as the Tag League final. Miyamoto is a guy who I think, he's done a lot of crazy shit in his career, and he's all scarred up, and he's in his 40s. He's done death matches.
Yeah, a lot of death matches.
He's obviously wearing down and all that, but man, did he channel something here, because, I thought he looked pretty great. And it's the little TV title that nobody cares about, and they didn't need a strong card on this other than the Tag League stuff, and they knew it. But these guys went out there and I thought they killed it in the semi, and again, the crowd was hot and that helps. And they put the title on Miyamoto. And it doesn't mean anything. This title doesn't matter who holds this title or anything like that. But, it's got me interested in where they go with him now based on his performance here. So I really did like that match. As far as the rest of the show, my other big observation was Mike DiVecchio, who I saw the opener in Corkin. I saw this show in Corkin. I saw one or two other matches. They have something with this guy, and I think they know they have something with this guy.
He got the pinfall. He got the pinfall in that match and got the shine at the end of the match.
Yes, and he was the clear focal point of the entire match. Mm-hmm. So I think that shows that he's coming back, and you can almost tell with his body language and mannerisms that he wants to come back, and he was just super excited about being there and he knew he crushed it because he had a great performance here, and he looked great on night one in the same building.
After he hit that shooting star press to win the match or whatever, he got up and he just, he just knew he crushed it. One of those moments where he's like, yeah. And all I'm thinking is get this guy away from Shima. Because if Shima sees this guy that looks like that and does a shooting star press that looks like that, he is going to bring him. That man is going to empty the fucking bank to get this guy into GLEAT. And we need to not let that happen. We can't have Mike D in GLEAT.
But I got to tell you, I think Davey Boy as champ is exactly the kind of thing that All Japan needed, because the Triple Crown title scene was getting stale as fuck with the same people over and over. And I think Davey Boy just brings a completely different element and freshens things up. And a guy like this to what is a small roster that's been the same people for years, right? And now we have this news where Suwama is going to start cutting back on his dates. So Suwama is leaving his EVP position with the company. Okay. I think he's keeping some maybe just token board position, but he's no longer going to be in power. He wants to go part-time. He's wanted to quit for a while. They kept him around for a couple more months, but now he's going. He's going to do more with the Evolution stuff, his brand and everything. And, and he's getting older and he wants to do some stuff, his own shit. I understand, and I think it's good for All Japan that Suwama, who has gotten stale as hell, he's cutting back, and that's a good thing to me.
I agree.
And,
because he's always a safety valve. He was always like a safety valve you could go to. It's like, fuck, let's go with Suwama again.
And a very
or whatever.
Boring safety valve. Yeah. And a guy that's not going to make a difference anymore at this stage. And, I like that he's sticking around to some extent, but I also like that he's going to be part-time. It opens the door. And I think Davey Boy just makes the Triple Crown scene feel fresh. It's something different. It's something new. We're talking about possibilities. Is he going to turn on Kento? Is he going to lose to June? This is good. And Mike DiVecchio fits into that too, because he just jumps off the fucking screen in this company.
Literally and figuratively, for sure.
He's got charisma. He looks great. He does cool shit. The fans here,
they love him. Yeah, trust me.
He was over like a motherfucker.
After that show, I was like, if you don't like this guy too fucking bad, because this guy got over in a sold-out Korakuen Hall and did a shooting star press to win the match, and he has fucking abs and all, he's going to get pushed. Like, you're fucked if you don't like this guy, because he's going to get pushed to the moon.
I think they want him back. I think it's very clear they want to keep this guy around. I think this was a good tour for him. He got over in the most important building, and he had that shit-eating grin on his face at the end of this thing in the post-match where they cleared the deck and let him be the focus after that match. And, Oishi got in there, his partner, the guy he teamed with on the tour, and, shook his hand and everything. And I just, I look, him and Davey Boy, I think, have really freshened things up, because I've really enjoyed All Japan the last 2 years. But it has been getting stale.
It was the last 6 months of 2024. It felt very stale.
Yeah, and there's really no one else. They've pushed Yuma Anzai. Okay, mission complete. They got him over. He's a real top guy. Ren Ayabe. We don't like him, but they elevated him and they moved him up. The Saetos. They moved him up, right? There's no one left internally to move up. Okay, it's like maybe your theory, if they really like Rising Hayato, they could do something with him.
He'll never be a Triple Crown guy. He'll never be a Triple Crown guy.
He could be a popular guy on the card that sells fucking horny books and
he's not a main eventer. He doesn't have that build. He'll never have that build.
So then, you look and who else is there that you could really truly, but you bring in two guys like this and they just added something to this tour. And on this show, they were clear. Both of them were clear standout. And the other thing about Davey Boy and Mike D, they're clearly over with the fan base.
Yeah.
They like both of these guys. So, that he was a standout too. As far as the rest of the show, Sakamoto, Kengo Mishimo, and Ryu Inoue over Dan Tamura, Shotaro Ashino, and the young boy Taishin Nagayo. It was good. It's fun. Fun 6-man where you knew what was going to happen because there's a young boy in the mix.
Yeah, but nice and easy. Just 6 minutes in and out. That's all you needed.
Yeah, it got guys that were on the tour, and it was entertaining enough. Then the 10-man tag with the comedy stuff, that was a nothing match. That didn't do anything for me. Just for posterity, it was Hideki Suzuki, Hikaru Sato, Suwama, Yuma Aoyagi, Funmari Abe over Cyrus, Hartley Jackson, Hakuto Omori, Jack Kennedy, and Kuma Arashi. It's just the least interesting match on the show. And then we talked about everything else.
Like, they barely wrestled. It was basically just everybody got in. It took forever for everybody to get in. They all jacked around for a couple minutes, and then a couple moves happened, and then it was over. You know what I mean? Like, just nothing.
It's the leftovers from the tour that they crammed into one match, and they had a match, and it was a nothing match. But yeah, no, this was a fun show that I enjoyed watching from start to finish, which, it hasn't been a lot of that these days in wrestling. A lot of the vibes are down for a lot of people. That's no big secret. And this show was a lot of fun.
So December 31st, they got their New Year's Eve show. So real quickly, run down the card of this. Got Davey Boy Smith Jr. versus Jun Saito for the Triple Crown. Kento Miyahara, Ryo Inoue versus Rising Hayato and Yuma Anzai. Daisuke Sakamoto versus Dan Tamura in a singles match. Ryuki Honda and Ren Ayabe versus the Aoyagis because Atsuki Aoyagi came back.
We didn't talk about that. Yeah. So did you watch that? He
came back in the ring, and everyone's like, "Oh, he stood up from the announcers because he's been doing announcing while he's been injured." So he stood up from the announce table
for many months,
and that got because he stood up from the announce table. He got and then he decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to springboard into the ring, and then the fans went and then he went and did backflips, and the fans went So it was awesome.
Really
he's
great.
Like, knees good, let me show you that my knee feels good. I'm going to do backflips in the ring. So the crowd went nuts.
Aoyagi, he's back. He's back, and he'll be his return to the ring will be on it.
Yep. And then just a bunch of other random tags that they're throwing other people together. But big time stuff there is Davey Boy and Jun Saito, Kento and Inoue versus Hayato and Anzai, and then Sakamoto versus Dan Tamura, and then the return of Atsuki Aoyagi. So we'll obviously be reviewing that. The best time of the year, the calendar turning over in Japan. All these great shows coming up very soon. So excited for all.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
All right. Unfortunately, I didn't really like the show at all. New Japan World Tag League Final. I feel nothing from New Japan right now, man. I don't know about you. I feel
a lot of news coming
nothing.
out of the show.
A lot of news. A lot of news
coming out of the show.
We've also rendered. All right. So World Tag League Final. Hiromu and Tetsuya Naito defeat Gabe Kidd and Sonata. 30 minutes or something like that, or 27-12. I mean, I don't know. What did you think? I thought it was boring as fuck.
The match did absolutely nothing for me. After the second ref bump, I'm like, I'm out. Now listen, I understand that the second ref bump was to set up Naito yanking, like doing that pin save where he yanked the ref out.
Yeah.
I'm out. The Bullet Club War Dog stuff, my tolerance is at 0, and the match was egregiously long. We don't need to go a half hour with this. You could have done this match in 20 minutes instead of 27 minutes. Naito is what he is at this point, and I don't know. This was a 2-star match to me. I just had no interest in it. I'm not invested at all, and I didn't think the match. I mean, you do the crowd brawling to start, which had some heat, and I think they would have been better served just working at a faster pace and having a hot match, a hot extended sprint, rather than doing whatever the fuck this was and just wasting a half hour of my life. Was it though by the end?
No.
I don't know.
I don't think so, but it's
Sonata is trying to be more interesting in this current incarnation.
Is he?
He's still dull as
This is him trying?
He's trying.
Are you sure?
I mean, he's a little more expressive.
Okay.
In this with the War Dogs, he is.
Yeah.
He's wrestling in a torn up T-shirt because he's edgy now.
So that's the trying. Is I have a torn up T-shirt.
He's been a little more expressive. I'm not saying I like it. I mean, it's Sonata. He could fuck off forever, and I wouldn't care. I mean, if Sonata retired tomorrow, would you even notice or care? I mean, no, of course not.
Of course not. I would
but
never.
I mean, it's. I don't need to see him wrestle anymore. But look, the big news here is Hiromu and Naito are having a singles match on the 4th, and that the tag titles are now officially vacant, and they're being decided on the 5th with the Bucks versus Great O'Khan and a mystery partner. So I feel like the Bucks are definitely winning that. I feel like the Bucks were going to beat O'Khan and Hanare anyway.
Correct.
So I don't think that New Japan is going to lose anything with Hanare going down with the injury, because I think the Bucks were going to win that match regardless.
Everybody should handle that pretty nicely and not have a problem with that whatsoever. So that'll be good.
Well, yeah, of course. And it's a shame. I feel bad for Hanare. I think that the O'Khan Hanare surprise team that kind of got into the title mix out of nowhere and then won the titles and everything, I thought they were a good team and a fun team, and I think it was a good thing for both of those guys. And it's never a good time
Terrible
to be
luck.
injured. But
Terrible time.
This really shitty time for Hanare to be
could not be worse timing, to be honest. I mean,
he's going to have a great match with the Bucks in the Dome, and that's gone. He's going to be gone for months, and it's really a shame. But as we speculated on months ago, they're going to do Hiromu and Naito in the Dome, and that's the drawing match. That's it. It's not Zack Sabre Jr. and Shota Umino. It's Hiromu and Naito. That was the big match that they have mysteriously kept in their back pocket all this time for a rainy day. Rich,
we're raining.
Day is arrived.
We're raining, yeah. Yeah, and this, I mean, we called this, 6 months ago? Basically, we said that they're probably going to do Naito versus Hiromu at Wrestle Kingdom. And then when they locked in Sabre versus Umino, it was like, oh, dear God, yes, they're, of course, not
That was the whole conversation we had.
Right,
we
they're
like,
not main
eventing
and drawing with Zack Sabre Jr. and Shota Umino. There's no way. They have to be adding Hiromu and Naito, and of course, they are adding Hiromu and Naito. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to bring up, and you had this long rant about it several weeks ago when we talked about the Super Junior Tag League. Because, Joe, we'll start there. How about we start there?
Yeah.
The winners of the Super Junior Tag League were Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita, correct?
Right.
They will now be going on January 4th and defending, or they get a chance at the IWGP Junior Heavyweight titles against the Intergalactic Jet Setters. Also in the match is Catch 2-2, the people they beat in the finals, and Clark Connors and Joel Maloney, the guys that were also in the tournament and finished 6 points in the A block.
We ranted about that. Yeah, it's so winning stupid.
Winning that tournament meant absolutely nothing, and
meant nothing.
It didn't matter. Yeah, the World Tag League. We have this multi-week tag team tournament.
Catch 2-2 gets the same reward as the team that beat them.
Bullet Club War Dogs. They weren't even in the They weren't even in the finals. They didn't make the finals, and they get the same reward that the Ichiban Sweet Boys get.
It's indefensibly stupid, and I feel bad that Chris Charlton and the other guy, Walker Stewart, yep. Says, I feel bad that they have to figure out a way to try to make it seem like it makes sense and it's good. It's so stupid that it makes me feel bad for the commentators. That's how stupid that whole thing is. But anyway, continue on.
So the World Tag League, we have this multi-week tournament, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito win the tournament and just decide, we should face each other at Wrestle Kingdom. And now they're going to face each other at Wrestle Kingdom. So we've now rendered that tournament worthless because the tag titles are just a completely, it's the Young Bucks versus Great O'Khan and Hanari or whatever. It's just, okay, whatever. So we've rendered that tournament not worthless, but
and you can't,
the reward is nothing.
Blame,
you know,
and you can't blame the injury because it's the same plan playing out. It's just not, it's someone in place of Hanare. So, yeah, no, I agree. And this tour didn't draw that great. And these kind of decisions aren't going to help these kinds of tours draw.
No. And the G1 this year, we saw with the G1 this year, it didn't, a lot of people were quick to, oh, no, the G1, guaranteeing you the Wrestle Kingdom thing, that's new. That's not always been the case. It's okay to change from that. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think it's a really good way to build, your title challenger for Wrestle Kingdom. That's not necessarily my point. And they didn't do that. They obviously jumped ahead and had Zack Sabre Jr. win at King of Pro Wrestling, and then Shota Umino gets a title shot.
I don't mind that, though. I don't mind it,
but I think in a year where you're also going to render the World Tag League and the Super Junior Tag League worthless, that it might have been a good idea to keep one tournament where when you win that tournament, you get, a special privilege at Wrestle Kingdom.
Well, okay, here's why I understand what you're saying, because you're like stacking tournaments where the tradition's broken, and in some cases the tournament doesn't mean anything. But in this case, the G1 stuff was a business decision because they had to get to Naito Hiromu for that show.
Right. I get it. I get it.
So you had to get the title off of Naito way before then and get it on Zack. And I don't feel like Zack's G1 is being seen as not being. The reward he got was a title shot.
Right. No, I get that. It's just it's stacking them all together. It's putting them all together.
In kayfabe, he asked for it early. That's the other thing. So in kayfabe, it was his decision. But stacking it with the other two, which then meant nothing, it is a lot. I see where you're coming from.
One of the best draws that New Japan has is our tournaments. And they mean something, and they have a usefulness and all this sort of stuff. Their titles used to be that too. We have these titles that used to mean stuff. And in a company that, is drawing okay, but the World Tag League, like you said, didn't draw great. I don't know that if I would start rendering the tournament results entirely worthless. And this is not it's not the G1. The G1 is just one of the many but it's really the World Tag League and the Super Junior Tag League where in the conclusion of those, it's essentially just, all right, whatever. We just moved. We just needed a month worth of shows and we did them, and now we move on. And the winners don't really matter at all. And the Junior Tag League, that's not anything new. They do the 4 ways all the time. It's just, it just kind of sucks. And then the Tag League also, it's whatever. It just, if you're into New Japan, and this might seem like I'm just bitching to bitch or whatever, but I'm not into it. So it's like things like this, I'm trying to get into it, and they're just finding ways that just kind of stop me from getting into what they're doing. Because whatever.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So, they did set the deck also for the road to the Tokyo Dome shows, the first 3 of which in the tour stops are nothing shows, and then the 2 Korakuen shows, which have a little more juice to them. Let's do these first before we do Strong Style Evolve. So the Korakuen on the 22nd, it has Great O'Khan versus Taichi for the King of Pro Wrestling. Those are 2 guys that really put a lot of effort and thought into what they do with that title. So we'll see what they come up with. It could be really dumb. O'Khan has a lot of really bad ideas, even if they're creative.
Right. That's one of the things everyone's like, oh, he's got good ideas. He's got ideas, and it's like, they're not all.
Yeah, but then sometimes we're eating eel.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's.
They didn't even eat eel. The payoff to that, they didn't even eat eel. Didn't they just eat like rice? It was something they didn't even eat eel. Like Tagovailoa.
Gonna be honest, Rich, didn't watch it.
I think Tagovailoa said that's not going to work for me, brother, and didn't eat eel. I forget what it was, but he just ate like some normal ass food or something.
So Tanahashi and Shota Umino versus Kosei Fujita and Zack Sabre Jr. is the semi. The other change they made, I don't think we talked about, was Tanahashi and Evil is now a lumberjack match with Tanahashi's career on the line. So the Tokyo Dome match. Now, that I think is just going to be a fun crowd-pleasing match where a bunch of baby faces get to beat up a bunch of heels, and Tanahashi wins in the end. Yeah. And I also think that is the number 2 drawing match on the show. I think that Hiromu Naito is what they're counting on to sell tickets, and I think Tanahashi, with his career on the line against Evil, is the clear number 2. I think the Sabre Jr. Umino match is at best the number 3 match on the show in from a ticket selling standpoint, from an important standpoint.
Oh, of course.
It's number 3.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
I mean, it's going on last. It's going to go on last, but and look, they're going to try to make a guy. We've been screaming at him to try to make a guy. I feel like you can't really talk out of both sides of your mouth and say, no, not like that. Well, no, this is one of the guys that they have to try to make, right? I don't know if he'd be my pick. Well, I know he wouldn't be my pick.
I guess that's my point. Yeah, I agree that they should try to make a guy. I just don't know if that's the guy that I would try to make. I think there's other guys I would try to make.
This motherfucker could win. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Is it completely impossible?
No, oh God, no.
So anyway, the rest of that show, let me look at for interesting stuff.
By the way, they ate dumplings, which the whole point was eel is like this weird exotic food. But I'm sure Tongaloa said that it's not going to work for me, brother.
That's comedy.
So they ate dumplings instead. And it was like, well, nobody's going to not want to eat dumplings. Like, dumplings are delicious.
Yeah,
So
doing some comedy. It's not for me. It's not for you. Tenkoji is back together. They will team against Oleg Boltin and Toru Yano, who did, Toru Yano did way better in the tag league than people thought. Robbie Eagles, Drillo Maloney, Francisco Akira, and Kevin Knight in a 4-way match. Participants from the 4-way title match that we just ripped apart. A little preview for that. That's about it for interesting stuff. There's a Chase Your Dream
yeah,
opener.
I was going to say, what about the Chase Your Dream match with a question mark?
I don't know what's going on there. That's the 22nd. So then the 23rd, there's another Chase Your Dream match, but with the other young boy, Murashima. Is he the huskier one? He looked good on the
yes.
If he's
I
the huskier
agree.
one.
The huskier guy is better. I think that's I think that's Morishima is the huskier.
Crowd liked him too. So Hartley Jackson versus Jeff Cobb, singles action. Singles action's always going to get my attention.
That's Hartley Jackson, Jeff Cobb. That sounds great.
Yeah. Non-title with Knight and Kushida versus the Ichiban Sweet Boys.
This should be the match. Why is this not the Wrestle Kingdom match?
Right.
The Ichiban Sweet Boys should demand
tournament.
this. No, hold on a minute. This must be a tag match. We won the tournament. We
It's so
deserve this.
fucking stupid, and there's no justification.
I didn't know. I forgot they were booking this match before. No, it's like, fuck off. No, give us the title match right now.
Yeah.
They should come out
So
there.
dumb.
Robbie Eagles should say, fuck
Ichiban
this. No,
fucking
put that title on the
Sweet
lines. Ichiban
Yeah.
Sweet Boys. Yeah.
Dumb. Catch 2-2 versus Connors and Maloney. And then just a bunch of stuff. And the main event, the final preview for the title match, Shota Umino and Tomohiro Ishii versus Rohei Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. They look okay. Those shows look okay. It'll all depend on the energy in the buildings. So, I mean, it looks like we're set for Wrestle Kingdom, the 4-way
We're locked
junior
in.
tag title.
Yeah.
Mayu Iwatani versus AZM for the IWGP Women's title. The 3-way, Ren Narita, Jeff Cobb, and Rohei Oiwa. The now Lumberjack with the career on the line, Tanahashi and Evil. The title for title, Shingo versus Takeshita, which I think we all have earmarked
great.
as, something special. Plus title for title. I mean, fuck. Dookie versus Despy. Finley versus Yota Tsuji. Naito versus Hiromu. And Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 matches. 9 matches. Next night, that, by the way, plenty of time to talk about it. That card doesn't do much for me at all.
Yeah, I'm indifferent to it. I saw a lot of discussion about that.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm looking forward to
Am I chomping at the bit?
matches I'm looking forward to watching. Shingo and Takeshita, Finley and Tsuji. I think that Dookie and Desperado. Dookie and Despy. I can't deny that.
The Tanahashi match will be fun.
Yeah.
I don't care about the rest of it, honestly. I don't have. I'm sure some of the other matches will be good, but
if
I
you're
don't
into
care.
LIJ, of course.
I mean,
but I don't really want to see the husk of Naito.
No, I'm not. I have no interest in Naito anymore. I mean, he might be able to channel it for one night. I don't have any doubt about that. I mean, if he went out there and wrestled really well, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Oh no! I just can't say that I'm excited right now. Sitting here on December 11th, I can't say that I'm excited about seeing Naito wrestle. And Sabre and Umino has like a curiosity factor out of me, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I'll be interested in the outcome and everything. Yeah, and it could be good. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The other matches all have a chance to be good. I'm just saying I'm not into them. That's, you know what I mean? I think you're in the same place.
Yeah. And like Mayu Iwatani, because people are going to say, oh, that match is going to be, but that match is going to get like
7 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to get like 7 or 9 minutes or whatever. Like, yeah, I think both those women are capable of having a really good match, but you gotta take this out of the context of this is not main eventing a Stardom show. This is second from the bottom on a long Wrestle Kingdom show. They're going to be wrestling, very early on in the day, and it's going to be like 7 or 9 minutes. So you can be excited for it if you want, but I think you need to temper your expectations about what they're going to be able to deliver in 9 minutes or whatever. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then the Wrestle Dynasty, they added some stuff too. So the International Women's Cup, that's still ongoing. Athena and then whoever. Didn't they give Ishii an opponent? The never open weight. Oh, the winner the night before. It's up
in the air because depending on, and that'll be a great. It'll either be Shingo or Takeshita versus Ishii, which I'm good with either scenario.
But only the never on the line.
But only the never, yes. Only the never will be on the line of whoever wins it. Somebody, I forget, I think it was like Brian and Dave were trying to say that that's confusing. It's not confusing at all. It's like one man will have both titles and then they'll defend the never title on the next day. Like, that's not confusing at all.
So then the other thing they're doing is with the 4 big singles matches, what titles are on the line and in which matches dependent on what happens the night before. So Jack Perry versus Yota Tsuji, Ricochet versus Zack Sabre Jr., Castagnoli versus Umino, and those 3 matches. And so Umino will defend against Castagnoli, Sabre would defend against Ricochet, and Yota Tsuji would defend against Jack Perry. Isn't that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So is that also the case for David Finlay and Brody King? Or is that
is locked in as a non-title match? That is locked in as a non-title match. So they have announced that as non-title. So David Finlay will not be, even if he is still the champion, he will not be defending it.
So then, of course, Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd and the Bucks match that we already talked about. I don't think this show is knocking my socks off either, but I'll be interested in it. I'll watch it. I'll be. It's not that far behind Wrestle Kingdom for me, honestly. I mean, I think they're kind of a total package. They're hand in hand with each other. And
there's about 3 matches on both shows that I'm really truly looking forward to, and then like the rest is like, we'll see.
I mean, Ricochet, Zack Sabre Jr. could be really great in the Tokyo Dome.
As long as he's got those trunks. Hopefully they're not bringing the long boys.
As long as he wears the trunks.
If he's bringing the long boys to Japan, I'm out. But if he brings those,
comes out in the long pants, I'm just gonna be like, fuck, 3-star match. He comes out in them trunks.
Anything's possible.
Anything, yes.
And then Kenny, obviously, I'm very curious on Kenny too. If he's full strength, I mean, I know that he's getting knowing Kenny Omega, he's doing everything he can right now to get his body in shape, and he's probably in the ring bouncing all over the place or whatever. But we'll see. And if he can get something, if he can harness something out of Gabe Kidd, who's a guy that I think has all the talent in the world, it just needs to kind of focus, you know what I mean, when he's in the ring and do more, like I said earlier in the night, show, don't tell. He's very tell. He's very tell right now and needs to do a little bit more show. But I think he's in there with the right opponent, Kenny Omega. I think that's a great opponent there. But both shows are like, if I had to like rank them like out of 10, I'm probably like a 6 out of 10 on both of them.
Yeah. That's my basic neighborhood too. I'm trying to check to see if Finlay would defend. It doesn't make sense to me that it would be locked in as non-title.
I don't know why they did that. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was something that I missed in some sort of promo or something like that. But
so anyway, Naito's getting eye surgery. He won't be on the Road Twos. That should probably be mentioned too. They don't have a preview up on the New Japan site for the 1-5 show. That doesn't make any sense. They've got a preview up for Wrestle Kingdom. Why don't they have a preview up for the 1-5 show? Okay, well, that exhausts my interest in trying to find out. I'm annoyed now, so now I don't care.
You want them to promote a show that's.
Let me. I will check the Twitter quickly. Let's see.
I don't know. That's just what I had in my notes, but I don't know if that's actually 100% true or whatever. I'm not sure. I don't know if I care enough.
All right, let's take a look. Oh, Templario joined United Empire.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's good. More Templarios good.
Yeah. All right. I will give another decent scroll here. Road to Tokyo Dome.
How's everybody doing out there? Hope you guys are doing well.
I will look until I get annoyed and can't find it. So,
Should hopefully be pretty soon.
Let's see. A lot of Ricochet. I got to watch these Ricochet interviews. I haven't seen any of these yet. Oh, forgot about this Go Shiozaki Yuji Nagata match in Cork and Hall on the 19th. See that?
That's right. Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That's two
I don't
pros.
think it's for the Z1 title, but they're having a special singles match. Forgot about that. Almost didn't bring it up. Happy birthday, Big Tom Ish. December 10th.
We could be done with this now. Nobody cares.
I'm determined to see if they have...
Report on it later or something.
No, hold on. Give it another try. All right, here we go. We got here's the tweets from the night of the tag. So, all right, here we go. Wrestle Dynasty will officially see IWGP Heavyweight and Global Championships defended. Yeah, he's defending if he wins.
At Dynasty? Okay.
Yeah. So, Finley, Brody King, or Perry Suji will be the global title, and then obviously Umino, Claudio, and Zach and Ricochet. So both titles will be defended, and also the tag titles obviously will be determined. So,
all right, let's get to this Strong Style Evolved this weekend in Long Beach. I don't want to watch these New Japan Strong shows anymore. I said that after the last one. I guess I'll give them a chance on this one. You got to do it, but New Japan Strong women's title, Mercedes Moné versus Hazuki in your main event.
Well, you told me that's going to be good.
It could be.
Okay.
I don't know if Moné's always good.
Oh, you're
days.
more concerned with Moné than Hazuki.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I could see, a half full Walter Pyramid and Moné saying, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't have to."
Oh my God, we're getting a 4-way junior tag title preview on this show too. TJP, Connors, Knight, and Fujita. Ugh.
Yep. So you got Moné versus Hazuki. We got Jack Perry and Takeshita. Okay. Versus Shingo and Yota Tsuji.
How are Perry and Takeshita aligned?
I don't know. I don't know. Dirty Work, Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler teaming with Shota Umino versus Bad Dude Tito, Shane Haste, and Zack Sabre Jr.
Where's Mad Mikey?
I don't know.
Where's Mad Mikey?
It's decided he didn't want to go to Long Beach. Didn't want to go to Long Beach. New Japan Strong Openweight title, Gabe Kidd versus Rohei Oiwa. That should be pretty good. I'm into that.
Well, if Gabe Kidd doesn't grab the mic and do a
that's true, and tell everybody, fuck you, I go to fucking hell, you could suck my fucking dick, fuck you. Okay, we get it, Gabe, we got it. Can you please
edgy
wrestle?
Boy.
Yeah, we get it.
Edgy
You're so
boy.
edgy. You say fuck. Yeah, that's so cool. Hiromu and Titan versus Jacob, Austin Young, and Templario. What a team! Of course, Joe, the United Empire crew of Jacob, Austin Young, and Templario. We all know classic United Empire team. Jacob, Austin Young,
long time United Empire tandem
of Jacob, Austin Young, and Templario. Yep.
Yes. What do they talk about?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
They talk about United Empire.
I guess there's not that much United Empire business, though. You know what I mean? They're not like a real businessy type of crew, but
talk about imperialism. What else do you talk about? I guess,
yeah,
right, United Empire, right.
Hechicero,
chat about colonies.
Yeah, right. Hechicero versus Leo Rush. As you mentioned, TJP versus Clark Connors versus Kevin Knight versus Kosei Fujita. New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team titles. I know you're going to be circling this one, Joe. The Grizzled Young Veterans versus, you guessed it, Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs, the West Coast Wrecking Crew. Yep.
Remember when people would leave territories?
Yep.
Crazy days.
Yep. Mina Shirakawa versus Johnny Robbie.
Do you know anything about Johnny
I
Robbie?
know nothing about Johnny Robbie. Yeah, I know nothing.
I assume this is a woman.
Yeah, I think so. That's
Can we
about
get
all I
that
know.
far with it at least?
I
Is
know
this a
that. I
women's
know
wrestler?
she's definitely a woman. Other than that, I don't know anything about young
Johnny Robbie.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen. I think she's Texas
Millennial
based.
Pro Wrestling. Doesn't look like it.
Oh, maybe not. Okay.
No. Johnny Robbie, Millennium Pro Wrestling.
Okay. Well, obviously it's
California
in Long Beach, so she's probably California based.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll get our first look at Johnny Robbie.
Yep. And then a strong Survivor match: Matt Vandergriff versus Zane J. That doesn't look great.
I don't know.
That doesn't look like a great show, Joe. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Am I looking forward to it? The answer is no, Rich Craich. I'm not looking forward to it. But the people demand a review next week.
I guess.
So we got
Do they? I think if we polled people, I don't think they demanded it.
I think they demand a review of the New Japan Strong Show. All right, MLW.
What they do demand a review of MLW, Eric Bischoff's
Absolutely.
one shot, which we can do in about 5 minutes because this show.
Oh, you didn't like this, did you?
stunk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God,
This wasn't
bad.
good.
Oh,
I agree, it wasn't
God,
good.
It was this terrible.
It was,
Eric Bischoff
currently
has
on-
done it again. Eric Bischoff has he's failed us again. Yep.
his stink just permeates everything he touches. And if you think it's just us, currently on Cage Match, 2.69.
Yep. Well deserved too. A very well deserved 2.69.
MLW's one shot, which was not a good show at all. Yeah, I mean, let's go through it. So here's what was weird about this. So they sent Bischoff out there for a promo to start the show.
Hey, Joe, can you jump off real quick and jump right back on? Your audio is kind of breaking up a little bit. Let's see if that helps it out a little bit. So we'll have Joe sign off for a sec here, bring it back on, see if we can get his audio cleaned up. We need to have clean audio here as we're burying Eric Bischoff. So, all right, you're good.
Better?
You're back. Yep, let's do it.
All right, so they send Bischoff out there to open the show, and he's very clearly a baby face in this situation. And then in the back, he books Paul Walter Hauser and Matthew Justice against the Andersons, and the Andersons are all like, "Oh no, we don't want to do that." Like so, he's again a baby face in this situation. And also, by the way, that segment made no sense because the Andersons are like picking on Paul Walter Hauser in the hallway, right? And they're threatening to beat up Paul Walter Hauser. Okay? So Bischoff enters the scene, shakes Paul Walter Hauser's hand, and then says, "Oh, I got a great idea. Why don't Matthew Justice team with Paul Walter Hauser and you can wrestle tonight? I'm going to make that match for tonight," right? So then the Andersons are all incensed. They're like, "What the hell? Didn't they just want to beat up Paul?"
They did, but they didn't want to beat up Matt. They didn't want Matthew Justice involved. They're scared of Matthew Justice.
Paul Walter Hauser, like, did you think that? I don't know. I don't understand. So Bischoff very clearly in his opening promo as a babyface, he gets interrupted by Contra and Baba Thunder, right?
By the way, he starts his promo like he has no idea what to say out there. He's like, "All right, how we doing out there?" And everyone's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "We enjoying some adult beverages?" And everyone's like, "Yeah." And then he goes, "All right, I'm all glad you're here." And they go, "Yeah." And then he goes, "We got a great night for you here today." And they go, "Yeah." And then he pauses and he goes, "You guys remember the NWO?" And everybody goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Survey time." And everybody goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Who's your favorite member of the NWO?" And everyone's just like, "Oh, people shout out random things." He goes, "I'm hearing a lot of Scott Hall." Is Scott? And I'm like, "What are we doing here? Can we get this
is
guy?"
all stuff that didn't need to be on the broadcast.
Right.
This should have been off air, all this fucking bullshit.
Because then he's like, "All right, who all likes Scott Hall?" And then they feel like, "Yeah, all right." And he's like, "All right, who all likes Kevin Nash?" And I'm like, what is this? Why are we doing this? And you have nothing else. You have nothing else to do, Eric Bischoff, than to go back to the NWO. Hey, who likes the NWO? It's just like, come on. It's ridiculous.
So then Baba Thunder comes out And
which we're supposed to know who Baba Thunder is, by the way.
right. Poor Joe Dombrowski.
Yeah, Dombrowski goes, "Oh my God, that's Baba Thunder." Christian Colon goes, "Oh, I can't believe it, Baba Thunder here in MLW," and it's like he's never
been called that outside of Poland. So yeah, it's comes out, has a terrible match with Matt.
This is obviously, if you couldn't put two and two together, this is the former Babatunde. I can't believe I have to explain that, but just in case you don't know, the former Babatunde.
Commander Aziz.
Commander Aziz is probably how some people know. Commander Aziz, Babatunde. Now he's Baba Thunder.
Yeah, I reviewed his PTW title match against Puncher a few months ago behind the paywall.
All caps? Was it Puncher all caps or just Puncher?
It's not Puncher all caps. It's just Puncher. He is the Polish champion. And
the champion
Baba
of the
Thunder,
Polish. The champion of the Polish.
Yeah, the champion of the Polish. So yeah, he's been wrestling as Baba Thunder. Apparently, he's been wrestling for Juggalo Championship Wrestling as well as Baba Thunder. But so he has this terrible match with Mads Krugar, and then the end result of it is Contra gets in the ring, and they basically are like, "You got a decision to make, Baba Thunder. What's it gonna be?" And he's like, "Contra!"
He's like, "Hell,
he
Contra!" And then Joe Dombrowski goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe it! Baba Thunder has joined Contra."
Oh my God, this guy who just lost in 2 minutes just joined Contra. What's gonna happen now? You know? So Baba Thunder, which sounds like it would be like a dollar store version of like Dr. Pepper or something. Like it would say Baba Thunder on the bottle instead or something. It's just such a low class, like a second rate sounding name, the Baba Thunder. And then he wrestles terribly, and then he joins Contra. And I don't know how this is supposed to be exciting or interesting to anyone. But then Bischoff does the segment in the back with the Andersons, where he's also, where again, clearly the babyface in this scenario because he makes the heels mad. But then the Boumaier Fight Club comes out, right? And Alex Kane is like, "I don't like you. I don't trust you. You're Eric Bischoff. You're Sleazy E. What? You're a colonizer. Like, what are you doing here?" And then Bischoff, he's like, he accuses him of reading the dirt sheets, right?
Yeah, he goes, "I don't know where you heard about this or that. You must be reading your dirt sheets." And I'm like, oh my God, why is this guy?
What is this shit? Like they think people, but then there's the thing. He fires Alex Kane later in the show, right? And goes heel. And then he's behaving like a heel for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
He didn't do any kind of turn. He just then started acting like a heel. And then at the end of the show, he's like looking at a contract. And Joe Dombrowski screaming about, Eric Bischoff, whatever the fuck, looking at whatever this contract is. So we're going to have more of this clown. We had our nice little corner of wrestling.
I know, and his fucker's invading it.
And this was all terrible. Did you see the segment with Cesar Duran where it looked like they were in a broom closet?
Right. And Eric,
how tight is
who
that
has
space?
no idea who this guy is, goes, Cesar Duran, I know a lot about you. Your reputation precedes itself or whatever. It's like, you have no idea who this guy is or whatever. And Cesar Duran's like, Eric Bischoff. It's just like, what is this?
He's like, no, he goes, Eric Bischoff. I hear you want some HLA.
Oh, that's right. We were doing HLA jokes. Right. Yeah.
Bischoff's like, I don't know, with the current social political climate, if we can do HLA anymore, the wokes, Cesar, aren't going to like this one, And Cesar's like, what do you mean? I'm talking about, of course, hot lucha action. And, that's the big joke.
The joke,
I'm sure all of our listeners are dying with laughter over that bit. And Ben Bischoff had to, he's shitting. He's like, I'm not a big fan of the lucha. I don't understand why all these guys are running around wearing masks And it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah,
Now he's
like a racist heel who wants to unmask all the luchadors. Yeah, because what started with the Alex Kane segment is he comes out. Eric Bischoff's been a total babyface the entire time, and Alex Kane's like, this guy's a fraud and a snake, and he bankrupts every company he's involved with. So now the gimmick is that Eric Bischoff's a fool and an idiot, and now we're retracing all this dumb shit he did in WCW. So then he forces Mystico into a mask versus title match.
Because he doesn't like masks. Because he unmasked Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
So they just decided halfway through the show that Eric Bischoff is going to just be a heel now. So that was like what all these other segments were. And by making the Mystico match, he's like, I got another great Eric Bischoff idea. Let's make this mask versus time. Well, now you just told us that Mystico is definitely going to win. Like, that's all that did. No one thinks Mystico's losing his mask to Trevor Lee in the middle of an MLW show. So just painfully stupid. It just all sucked, all of this Bischoff shit. And apparently he's going to be part of MLW now moving forward. Why? I have no idea. Whatever they're paying him, you're not going to get a return on the investment. He's not selling one ticket. Not one person is paying a ticket to an MLW show because Eric Bischoff is going to come out before the show and do a little promo, and then everything else is pre-taped anyway. Who the fuck wants to come see Eric Bischoff to begin with, and you're going to pay to come see him do pre-tapes? I don't understand. And then the wrestling on the show was pretty terrible. The Alex Kane, Bobby Fish, UWFI rules match, which apparently the fans voted on, allegedly. What would have been the difference between the UWFI rules and the kickboxing match?
I have no idea. This was bad. Yeah, the best part too is Christian Colon. Joe Dombrowski, he knew his UWFI rules. He knew what the acronym meant. He knew what the acronym was.
He does his homework.
Colon did not. He called it UFI like 6 different times. He goes, well, you can't do that in a UWFI match. And Joe Dombrowski goes, yeah, you can. It's just 1 point or whatever. Because Cologne goes, no rope breaks in a UWFI match or whatever. And Joe Dombrowski goes, yeah, there is. It's just going to cost you or whatever. It's like they had no idea. Cologne had no idea. And then halfway through the match, he's just like, I love this match. What a great match this is. I love the UWFI style matches. I love that we did this, so just awful. And this is bad. Fish, dude, he is
so bad. Fish didn't give a fuck. And he looks like Soda Popinski from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Yeah. Notice that?
I don't know what's going on with our man Rob Fish there, but it's not going well. He is very Soda Popinski these days.
Yeah.
Oh, so
that was the shits. And
we didn't. Did we talk about Delmy Exo versus Ava Everett? Fucking brutal.
I was hoping we wouldn't have to.
Awful.
But so we're gonna do hair versus title with Delmy Exo and Janai Kai. That's coming up next. Next up we had that's where Bischoff fired Alex Kane after the match. And then we had a backstage segment where Akira was with Kojima and Okamura, but the audio cut out, so I have no idea what any of them said.
I couldn't hear it either. Yeah.
It was just the audio just audibly cut out. And so that was that. I guess it was I don't know. Did this show air live? Yeah, it did last week when we were on the air.
Yeah.
So I thought Mystico and Trevor Lee was the best match on the show and the only thing worth watching. The problem, again, is they gave away the finish. Like, I didn't think Trevor Lee was going to come in and beat Mystico necessarily, but once you put the mask on the line, all right, now we know for sure. So we're just waiting around for Mystico to win, and he did. But I thought Trevor Lee looked good. So I liked the match. But next up was Matt Riddle versus Donovan Dijak in the Mr. Saint Laurent bout here with that they set up last time.
Earlier in the night, Matt Riddle cut a promo because he's now with Tom Lawler. They're like the fucking dope bros or whatever the fuck they are. I forget what their name is. It's something like that. It's some drug reference or something.
Yeah.
It's like drug bros or something. I don't know what the fuck it is. Who cares? And Riddle's just like, oh man, that Mr. St. Laurent, man, I don't like him. I don't trust him or whatever. He had no I
don't like him, dude.
He had none of he had St. Laurent. He had none of the St. Laurent or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Tom. I don't like that St. Laurent guy. I don't trust him one bit, and then what is their name? It's like the something bros. I forget what it is. Who cares?
Something, yeah, I don't know. But
Grapple
fuck bros.
Yeah, something like that.
But Dijak's just not going to happen, huh?
I don't think so. People claim that in Deadlock he had a good match recently, so I will watch that soon, and I'll report back if he had a good match, because this one did not turn the corner on one Donovan Dijak.
So we got the Andersons versus Paul Walter Hauser and Matthew Justice, and wouldn't you know it, they spun the Bischoff wheel. Was he even the spin the wheel, make the wheel guy? Wasn't that that wasn't even his regime?
That was Bill Watts. That was Bill Watts. Yeah.
Was it Watts or was it?
I think it started in '92. I think '92 Halloween Havoc was the first one, and I think Watts was still there.
I think it was.
Kip Allen Fry. Is that the Kip Allen Fry?
Wasn't it Allen Fry?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But anyway, so they spin the wheel, lands on Matthew Justice is there. Wouldn't you know it? New York City street fight, like we talked about last week.
You're right. It was Kip Allen Fry. I apologize.
Yeah. So how do I remember that? But I don't know what was on the last WWE
right.
pay-per-view.
You're like, hold on a minute. I think
hold on. Havoc, your facts are off, sir.
1992 Halloween Havoc was not booked by Bill Watts. No. Bill Watts came in months later. It was booked by Kip Allen Fry, who gave everybody performance bonuses.
Executive vice president in that show, sir, was K. Allen Fry. It was not, in fact, Bill Watts. The booker, I don't know who would the booker have been. That would have been 92 K. Allen Fry, Mike Graham. Maybe Mike Graham had a hand in that. I don't think he was the booker, but he may have been back there. I'd have to think about that and look that up. Anyway, New York City street fight. One thing I notice about Brock Anderson, they treat him a lot like Devon Eriks, where they don't really let him do like regular tag matches. Do you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
So it was some kind of plundery thing. But yeah, this was pretty terrible, this match. There was a lot of plunder, and it wasn't very good. So I don't know. You have anything to add? I'm
it was
struggling
bad.
Here.
It was really bad. Yeah, it was really bad, and nothing happened. And then we got to a really bad nothing happened in main event.
Yeah, I mean, Kojima just doesn't give a fuck. I mean, he's always in a good mood, but he's not in a mood to bump when he comes to MLW. No. That's for sure. And Okamura worked like the whole match.
Okamura was out here working his ass off. I wanted to give him credit in this match. He was working his ass off. Like him and Akira Kwan had like a legit good portions of this match. The problem is Kojima doesn't give a fuck, and Minoru Suzuki just plays the hits and absolutely audibly doesn't give a fuck.
They just took the night. They got together and were like, we don't have to do this tonight.
Right. They were probably, they probably shared a bottle of whiskey in backstage or whatever, you know what I mean, before, and then they went out there and said, yeah, we're just going to do like we're
not even tagging in.
No.
Yeah, we're not even tagging in. And they barely did. And Cozy Max retains, and then, I don't know, everybody threw bread in the ring.
Sir. Cozy Max did not retain. They won.
Oh, that's right. They won them back. They lost them. I forgot about that.
They lost them and won them back.
So they won them back.
Put some fucking respect on the MLW World Tag Team Championships, all right? Come on.
My apologies. That was a bad job out of me. And then all these fans just happened to have bread, and they all threw it in the ring. I'm sure that wasn't provided by the company at all. But Kojima's just stuffing the bread in his mouth and down his tights.
It's gross. Yeah, it's kind of disgusting.
I mean, it's in the ring. He's stepping on it, picking it up, and eating it, and it's just standard white, like Wonder Bread. It's not even like
it's not even bread. They're not even like hoagies out there. Not even like good rolls. It's just
sourdough or something. It's like, he's just this shitty white bread that like I make the PB&Js for the kids that like I won't even eat. Just a regular white bread. But I'm a bread snob with the sandwiches. I can't eat white bread. I don't eat regular white bread.
Basic ass Wonder white bread. What are you doing? Yeah, I like you know me. I like the Dave's bread and the fancy ass bullshit breads or whatever. But at least get some. If you want to get sourdough, get a real bread. Come on.
I gotta have a roll or a bun or it's something, or I won't make the sandwich.
Adults, I see adults eat like generic ass white bread, and I'm like, what? Come on, man. You have a job. Like, what are you doing? Like, get real bread.
Get yourself a decent bread. What's wrong with you? Eating white bread.
Yeah, store brand. Like white bread. You're like, come on, man. 49-cent bread. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, why are you wasting the fucking calories on that shit? Just get yourself a decent bread. I won't make the sandwich. I'll have the other components in the house. If I don't have a proper like roll,
it's a make or break.
Bun or
makes a break.
Yeah, I won't make the sandwich. I'm not doing it. I can't eat a sandwich like that. It's for the kids. So then, and then the show was terrible. This was
so
the worst.
Bad. It was so bad.
This was the worst MLW show all year. It was awful.
Well, luckily, Joe, they have a chance to right the wrong. Christmas Eve. I know you're going to gather because you guys do stuff on Christmas Eve, right? Isn't that relatively big? It's big in my family. That's one of our big get-togethers is Christmas Eve, not so much Christmas Day. And I will be gathering the family all around the TV and firing up the YouTube for MLW Holiday Rush on Christmas Eve. Satoshi Kojima, I'll have the whole family raising the roof. Satoshi Kojima versus Ultimo Guerrero for the MLW World Heavyweight title. Timothy Thatcher versus Tom Lawler. Teton versus Magnus. Matt Riddle versus Brett Ryan Gosselin. Minoru Suzuki versus Akira. Non-title match, don't get too excited. Janai Kai versus Tiffany Avatar. And then Ariel Dominguez versus D'Angelo. I don't know who either of those people are.
The musical artist?
I was going to say D'Angelo, the hit R&B artist. That's good for him getting in the ring.
What a score. What a score there for
D'Angelo. Get some brown sugar in the building, man. Let's go. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go.
That's an incredible. Yeah, Court Bauer strikes again with that
brown sugar D'Angelo in the building. Let's go.
with that settlement money, he booked D'Angelo. Unbelievable. Well, concert maybe before the show starts.
Yeah. It's Christmas Eve, so he could play a bevy of Christmas hits. He's probably got a version of This Christmas or something like that. I'm sure D'Angelo's
little drummer
got something.
boy.
Yeah, little drummer boy. Yeah. Someday at Christmas, done by D'Angelo. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, can't wait.
Maybe his take on Last Christmas by Wham. You never know. I don't know, man. I'm down on the MLW. We followed it all year.
Yeah, I mean the amount of Bischoff is worrisome for sure.
And it was bad. And it was bad.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go in wanting to dislike it, but I hated it. I thought it was a terrible show. So how far do we get into 2025 before we hand wave it?
I think Kings of Colosseum will be the make or break there. I think because that's a big time. Matt Riddle.
You're not wasting any time.
Will probably beat Kojima for the title.
Right.
Yeah, that might
go versus Cavenario.
Yeah.
Bischoff's gravity gamble match.
Yeah.
A new innovative concept that I've come up with: the gravity gamble match. So the fucking ladder match.
It's a ladder match, yeah. And I love that Christian Colon guy is like, the mind of Eric Bischoff continues to innovate. I'm like, what has he innovated? What? Tell me what.
It's a ladder match with a Feast or Fired gimmick. It's the TNA Feast or Fired, right? Like
yes.
Various suitcases. One of them has a contract. The other means you're fired.
Yeah.
Like
we did this. We did this.
The mind of Eric Bischoff. Yeah, what has he innovated? What?
Right.
What did he do?
He watched Sons of Anarchy and he went to New Japan one time when they were doing an invasion angle. That's essentially the mind of Eric Bischoff right there.
He talked shit to Ted Turner and Turner called his bluff and said, "You're on next Monday." That's what he did.
Right. And then he
admits he didn't even mean it.
Yeah, the presence of Bischoff might be the end.
It's so off-putting.
It might be the end.
It's so off-putting. All right, that's MLW.
That's the end of this show. That might be the end of MLW, and that might be the end of our show. Well, that is definitely the end of the show. So we will see you guys Saturday night again. $10 tier, flagshippatreon.com. Instant reaction live immediately following Saturday night's main event. We'll see you guys there on Saturday. By the way, still time to gift a Patreon subscription. We've seen several of these, by the way, coming through. But patreon.com/voicewrestling/gift. Or if you just go to our Patreon, we have links all over the place. You can find that. But it's been really cool to see people gifting friends, family members, maybe even enemies. I don't know. I don't really care. As long as you're gifting them a subscription, works for us. You can gift up to 12 months, I believe. If you want to pay for a whole year of someone's flagship Patreon subscription, you can do that. Or if you just want to pay for a month or a couple months, you can do that. But I've seen a lot come through, and that's been really cool because they're all new people, for the most part, like people that haven't subscribed ever before. So hopefully they stick around. They like what they hear. They like what they're listening to and reading, and yeah, that's great. So yeah, those of you that have gifted subscriptions, thank you so much. But still, yeah, plenty of time to do that. But yeah, it's a cool new feature, and I've been glad people are starting to use it and utilize it and spread the word about what we do here at flagshippatreon.com. But yeah, that is going to be it for us. Again, we'll see you Saturday night, immediately following Saturday night's main event, Instant Reaction Live. And that's it for us. That is Joe. I'm Rich. We'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.
My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voice of Wrestling Network.